Why wouldn't you just keep your bet?
Because we have no certainty about the outcome. They fucked it up so much.
So if they change the outcome of the election, you don't consider that rigging?
I never said it was rigging. Are you having trouble following me? I said once they said they weren't going to release the result for days, I said fuck this election.
Yeah, but why not keep the money in? It's free money now.
Because I have no faith in the process, and I was proven right because they still don't have results. They still have mathematical problems. They're still recounting. They still fucked it up.
When you say you have no faith in the results, are you implying that they would report a dishonest result for the outcome of that?
No. I'm saying straight up that they're incompetent and they don't know what happened. That's different than them actively changing the result. I don't know why this is hard to. You agree that they're incompetent, right, Destiny?
Yeah, sure. It's hard to read between the lines sometimes with all the shit that you say. So you don't think the Iowa caucus results will ever be reported?
I don't think they're. I don't know. We have multiple math errors. They said that math is an opinion. Do you agree with that?
Can you show me where they said math is an opinion?
They said they couldn't change the results of the caucus sheets, even for math errors.
Okay.
Because it's an opinion.
Do you think that they mean to say that math is an opinion, or they don't want to set a precedent of starting to actually change some of the recorded vote tallies because of what that?
No, they didn't. No. Now you're being slippery, Steve.
Not being slippery, Steve.
Nobody says change the recorded vote tallies. They say change the calculations of who gets the or the county delegate equivalents based on apparent math errors or violations of the rules.
Oh, so are you talking about not the vote tallies, but the actual addition of the whatever numbers?
So what they do is they take the result, the final realignment result, and then there's formulas that they apply in order to give state delegate equivalents. So people fucked up the arithmetic. Yes, this is the problem.
Is there actually evidence that there's like these sheets that have fucked over candidates or whatever?
Yes, there's plenty of this evidence. We got it. Oh, Jesus Christ. Now this is
This is from the Chicago Tribune, February 9th. Those
New York Times even did a whole article about it.
Known as caucus math sheets could not be changed even if they contained mistakes, according to the lawyer for the Iowa Democratic Party, because they were a legal record and altering them could be a crime. The incorrect math of the caucus math worksheets must not be changed to ensure the integrity of the process, end quote, wrote the party lawyer Shayla McCorley, according to an email, blah, blah, blah. The lawyer said correcting the math would introduce, quote, personal opinion, end quote, into the official record of results.
Now, I don't know about you, but math is like, especially arithmetic here. This is not personal opinion. This is something that the court can take judicial notice of, like 2 + 2 = 4. We all could agree that's pretty basic, and we could all correct arithmetic errors. Now, for some reason, the Iowa State Democratic Party doesn't want to correct these arithmetic errors. And I have no faith in the Democratic Party of Iowa coming to a conclusion that makes any fucking sense. Why? Straight up, why? Because the entire process is questionable. What would you look at it? Like, why did they put an app? What was the purpose of the app? It's not that it's trying to rig something. It's just so insecure and incompetent that if it was in Bolivia, Destiny would be supporting the coup.
But first of all, this has nothing to do with Bolivia. It's not even
It's called an analogy.
But the analogy fails on so many different levels. Secondly, why do people use apps? I don't know, because they probably thought it would speed the process up, but obviously the rollout was fucking botched as fuck. Also, I'm pretty sure that I'm having multiple people telling me this. They can't change the court documents themselves, like the actual legal writings of the arithmetic, but they can change, in the event of a recount, they can actually change the ending totals that they report. They are able to change that.
Okay, the idea that this is some sort of court document is something that they introduced. It's not something that's
introduced when?
When they said, "Oh, we would change this, but this would be a court document." That's something they said. It doesn't. It's not actually.
Is this Mike?
The evidence is not there. And in fact,
you're actually previous.
This. So why do you?
Previous court cases have shown that Democratic Party internal things, like, for example, caucuses, are entirely up to the discretion of the Democratic Party.
So let's assume. Can do that. Yeah. So let's assume that that's the case. Why would they do that? Let's assume they're arbitrarily.
That's a very good question. I would have to be reading their minds. All I can do is look at the results and say, they have a disputed outcome, And it looks like to me, Bernie Sanders won the popular vote. Looks like Bernie Sanders would be the beneficiary disproportionately of these math errors being corrected, and it hasn't happened.
Wait, do you know that?
I
Is
don't
that
know
true?
why.
How do you know that Bernie Sanders is the beneficiary of the corrected math errors?
Yeah, it's been covered a whole bunch. That's why the New York Times and no one called the election. Hold on. I mean, I know you don't cover politics very much, but
I mean, I covered enough to have been way more correct than you about Super Tuesday, so I mean, I would be careful there, my dude.
Wait. You called that everybody was going to drop out and simultaneously in synchronized swim fashion endorse Joe Biden?
I'm sorry, do candidates not drop out during the electoral process? Are you implying that every single person was going to go all the way to the convention?
Of course not.
Okay, so people run out of money. It was pretty clear that.
So wait. Your argument was Bernie's gonna win Iowa and New Hampshire, win Nevada by 28 points. Then Joe Biden was gonna catch himself in South Carolina, and then in the 3 days between South Carolina and Super Tuesday, everybody was gonna drop out except Elizabeth Warren. Like, you saw all that coming.
My initial statement months ago was that I didn't believe the American population was anywhere near as progressive as all of your little funny polls and graphs tried to demonstrate. There were a lot of Bernie bro math games going on here.
What are you talking about? The people said they support Bernie. Said they supported Medicare for all in majorities of states, even that Biden won.
Not really. No, it really depends on how you word the question.
Really.
There have been, what was that KFF poll that just recently came out that like 55% of people didn't even know what Medicare for all meant? No, it's like you can play the number games, but when the votes are actually cast,
I'm going by the exit polls. I'm going by the exit polls.
Or when you look at politicians that actually run on Medicare for all, these plans aren't really as popular as you make them out to be. That was always my initial contention. I didn't know if Bernie would win Iowa and New Hampshire and have like a little bump over 3 or 4 or over 3 small caucuses and primaries. That's entirely possible, sure. But my initial contention was always that I don't think Bernie Sanders is popular enough to get over that. What did I say? 25 to 30% bump that he seemed to have never been able to get over. And if we go and look up the RCP national averages on the polling, I'm willing to bet he probably never got over that 30% bump, did he?
Oh shit, redacted from redacted.
I think he was at like 33, 34.
Oh, no. He just recently got there. Okay, no. He just recently got there, sure. Although, trailing Biden by 16 points, but yeah.
Ultimately, like what we've seen here is we've seen the fact that Joe Biden and the Democratic Party did something that was pretty unprecedented with the number of people that dropped out and endorsed Biden. And I have to hand it to him. I didn't think that was possible. And keeping Elizabeth Warren in the race so that Bernie Sanders would narrowly lose Maine, narrowly lose Massachusetts, where she finished 3rd. He would narrowly lose Texas. And then his margin in California was a lot less than it would have been had she dropped out and endorsed. She still hasn't endorsed.
Wait, so do you think that Elizabeth Warren was kept in by the DNC? Also, you're ignoring the fact that Bloomberg was in here the entire time taking delegates from Biden as well, because Bloomberg's voters sure as fuck aren't going to Bernie. And Bloomberg had a way larger share of the delegate count than fucking Elizabeth Warren did.
Did she?
Also,
did he?
Also, Elizabeth Warren wouldn't have, if she dropped, there's no guarantee that all of her voters are going to Bernie as well. The last I saw, it was like a 50-50 split between Bernie and Biden. Not
prior to everybody dropping out, her vote would have gone overwhelmingly to Bernie.
You don't know that.
We do know that by the polling that took place. I mean, ultimately, these are counterfactuals. All we have on the ground right now is what happened. What happened is...
Sure, and what happened was exactly the opposite of what... Remember when you guys were all making fun of the fact that people were saying Bernie is running against all the moderates like it's one thing, and that people dropping out of the election aren't going to coalesce around one candidate like that? Guess what happened? Exactly that happened. This idea that you're trying to say, well, I could have never seen, Pete and all these other guys dropping...
Wait.
Of course...
So wait a minute. You don't think it was significant that Elizabeth Warren did not drop out and split
Bernie
the vote?
Math lol.
Nah, I don't think it mattered that much. Nah, I don't think it mattered that much.
Literally, she got 20% of the vote in Massachusetts. And you don't think that the majority of that would have gone to Bernie?
If it would have gone 50, even if it would have gone 50-50, we don't know if that would have been better. And this is assuming that Bloomberg stays in, because if Bloomberg drops out,
Bloomberg's entire strategy was to try Super Tuesday. The idea that he would drop out before Super Tuesday is madness.
Of course. But the idea that all of these other candidates...
Warren had no path to the nomination. She did far worse than Klobuchar.
Neither did Pete Buttigieg. Neither did Amy Klobuchar. Why would they stay in?
That's a great question.
Neither did Steyer. Why did they stay in? What do you mean, why did they drop out? Because they had no shot at Super Tuesday of doing anything.
Then why did she stay in? Why did she stay in if she had no shot?
Why does Warren stay in? I have no idea. Ask her.
That really good fucking question, right? So we have ourselves.
Maybe she wants to hold on to delegates to negotiate for positions in a cabinet.
For
later
what?
on.
Her 70 delegates?
QED.
Who
They don't
knows?
fucking
I don't
matter.
know. What, so
She dropped out immediately.
So what is the alternative?
The alternative, I can only go by what the talking heads were saying on MSNBC, which is that Democratic Party officials were looking for Elizabeth Warren to stay in so that Bernie Sanders didn't consolidate the electorate.
Can I get a source on any of this? I want a reputed. I want a publication that tells me that they have sourced from within the DNC that Elizabeth Warren was asked to stay in to sabotage.
On MSNBC. I mean,
I want to see that. I haven't read anything like that. I would love to see something like that.
Pull it out your ass just randomly.
I would love to see something like that.
Oh my god, hold on. It's not. I have it somewhere, but it might take me a while to find. But
Get it, Mike.
but once I get it, he'll just like move on and pretend like it's not.
He'll move the goalposts. We know it, Mike.
Jesus
It's all right.
Christ.
He's like really famous. For
Well, this is the like. Please give me evidence.
Just play League.
Please,
No one
please
cares.
waste some time. Just like get some evidence. Give me time to get some more stuff from my chat.
Well, the thing is that like you
She's
guys
got
are the
a hype
ones that
train
like
right now,
like
Red.
people people were talking about how Amy was going to stay in to ruin Bernie's chances in Minnesota and shit, and he still ends up losing the state. Like there's always a
Well,
conspiracy.
she dropped
theory.
out. She dropped out. Endorsed. She
Sure,
dropped
but
out
you've
endorsed.
you've always got like there's always a conspiracy theory to explain something. If somebody stays, if Elizabeth Warren stays in, it's good because she gets delegates to give to Bernie, or it's bad because she's being
Who
told by the
actually
DNC
thought
to spoil
that?
anything. If she drops out
That
now,
was incredibly stupid.
If she
That was
drops
incredibly
out now,
stupid.
and everything you've said so far, Mike, has been incredibly stupid. Do you understand that Tuesday
Not
was
a single
it
one
was a
thing I said has been
referendum on
incorrect.
everything you've said for the past 5 months, and you were wrong on every single point. It was a resounding no from the African American community, from the moderate community, and even partially from the Hispanics that Bernie Sanders is never going to be the nominee ever in the United States of America for president of America. You were dead
You have
wrong
a-
on
you have
every
a-
single,
Wait,
on
okay,
every
first
single
of all,
thing you
first of all,
talked about.
wait, you're just all this is. Wait a minute. You are trying to pretend that Elizabeth Warren not dropping out was not significant to split the vote.
Of course not. It wouldn't have made that big a difference on Super Tuesday.
I just
Bernie
told
got
you that it most certainly would have flipped Texas, Maine, Massachusetts, which totally changes the entire dynamic. And also, every other state is probably closer. And Bernie Sanders runs it another 10 points more in California. Like, you're literally delusional, which I guess.
You want to assume that Warren should drop out, and then we give all of those votes to Bernie
I
somehow.
never said all.
Okay,
I
if it
never
goes
said all.
50-50, your entire argument is mute. So what does it have to be? 70-30 go to Bernie? Maybe they do.
Of course,
but then what?
70-30.
But then what? Then what? Do we just assume that Bloomberg stays in forever, and we don't get to attribute that? Because if Bloomberg drops out, who do you think he's endorsing? Even if he stays through Super Tuesday, who does he endorse afterwards? Of course, it's going to be Biden. So none of this matters at the end of the day. Warren represents a far smaller spoiler for Bernie than Bloomberg did for Biden. So any what or whatevers you want to bring up about Warren is going to apply 10 times as much to Bloomberg to Biden.
That's not. Do you have evidence of that? Do you have actual evidence of that prior to the dropout? Because from what I saw, it was pretty 50-50 among Bloomberg dropping out as well. Like you're just making claims that you don't have evidence for.
What am I making claims about? The
That
delegates that they amassed?
that Bloomberg's voters would automatically have gone to Biden, but it's ridiculous to say that Elizabeth Warren's voters would have gone to Bernie. Everybody knew that Bloomberg was making a play for Super Tuesday. Him dropping out before Super Tuesday was never on the table.
Of course.
Elizabeth Warren, on the other hand, had no path to victory because she had not even finished in the top 2 in any of the first 4 races, including humiliating defeats in New Hampshire, where she finished, what, 5th?
Okay.
Or was it 4th? I can't remember. She stayed in the race, sucking up 10 to 15% of the vote, the majority of which, a large significant chunk of which, would have been Bernie Sanders supporters. We know that by countless polls showing that Bernie Sanders was the top second choice for Elizabeth Warren by 20, 30 points for most of the race. Now, when Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar dropped out during the post-South Carolina bump and said, vote for Joe Biden, that created an aura of, wow, this guy's really is the electable candidate. And what predictably happened, now we couldn't have seen, why would someone drop out with 3 days to go? There's no more investment to be made. They could have overperformed their polls. They have no idea what could have happened.
Maybe they want cabinet positions in Biden's office. Who knows? People
So
make deals
wait,
like this.
he's selling cabinet positions?
You don't sell
Is
them.
that
These things
legal?
are done.
Is that
All, these
legal?
things. It's not about whether it's legal or not. It's negotiating for positions. I'll drop out. Do this favor for you. Maybe I get a cabinet position later or whatever. It's not that uncommon. It's not that crazy. This is how electoral politics is played. It's not just you do one national poll and then that's who gets to be the president.
Of course. But first of all, you're not. It's actually against the ethics laws to trade positions of
what ethics law? Show me,
power.
Mike. I want to hear these ethics
Holy
laws. Please,
fuck.
let me see. Show me the ethics laws that say that if this guy drops out and gives me an endorsement, maybe he doesn't get a position in my office later on down the line.
Louder voice means more right, by the way.
What?
True.
Elizabeth Warren won 45 delegates on Super Tuesday. 45 delegates.
45 delegates. She's a fucking loser.
If only Bernie had those 45 delegates, everything would be so much different.
So, no, see, you don't understand how delegates work. You don't get any delegates until you get 15% of the vote in a congressional district. Now, if you get 13% of the vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's talking about viability to district, sure.
You get no delegates, which is exactly what happened to Elizabeth Warren. In most of the country, she got between 10 and 15% of the vote. 10 and 15% of the vote equals no delegates. Now, if you are somebody who's, say, at 30% of the vote and you go to 40% of the vote, that's a hell of a lot more delegates.
A hell of a lot more?
Yeah, it depends upon exactly how it breaks down and depends upon exactly who else is viable and not viable. This is not a very, especially in California, which I believe she was statewide. Was she statewide viable in California?
So I'm super curious. You legitimately think that if Warren wasn't in the election, Super Tuesday would have gone way differently? That Bernie would have come out on top? You really think that?
I think that it's obvious by looking at the distribution of votes that he would have won states like Massachusetts, Maine, and Texas, and he would have run up the score more in California.
She got 13.2.
And then also, the idea of her coming out and endorsing him, unifying the progressive vote behind Bernie, would have added some sort of staunch in the national media narrative, because the number one issue, and I think you can agree with me on this, is that boomers, people over 55 years old, their number one priority is beating Donald Trump. And they just want the most electable candidate. And it's not that they don't like Bernie's policies, and it's not that they don't like Bernie Sanders. They're just trying to pick the most electable candidate, just like they did in 2016, and just like they did in 2004, and just like they did in 2000. They tried to pick the most electable candidate. And just like 2016, we're going to get the same result, which is a horrible, embarrassing defeat, because Joe Biden does not motivate marginal drop-off voters like young people of color, young people. He's going
those
to
young people,
lose.
Mike. They didn't vote. They didn't vote for Bernie.
It's a primary, my dude.
If you can't vote in the primary,
is low.
It wasn't for Biden. It wasn't for Biden. It was huge. Biden's turnout was massive in a lot of these states.
What was the total turnout? What was the total turnout, percentage-wise, of eligible voters? Are you aware? Go ahead and go.
I don't know what the total turnout of percentage.
Why don't you know? You know it's huge.
Because I know that in some states it was 70% over what was reported in the primaries before. It doesn't matter what I don't know what the total percentage of voting population that turned out is, but I know that the population that came out and voted was a lot higher in the last cycle. And I know that Bernie's coalition didn't come out and vote. So if you're going to sit here and say, "Oh, well, Bernie's coalition, they'll come out and vote for him in the general, but they can't even show up in the primaries," Mike, that's a pretty hard fucking sell, mate.
Okay, if you've ever been involved in an electoral process before, you know that primary turnout is abysmal and always has been. Compared to a general election. General election, marginal voters are where these elections are won and lost. Why did Hillary Clinton lose against Donald Trump?
For a variety of reasons.
And one of those was what?
One is Rust Belt voters, one is a Comey letter, one is the fact that half the country fucking hated Hillary after years of fucking Benghazi and emails. Her being a woman probably played a little bit into it. Her lack of appeal to certain types of voters, working class voters.
Why did she lose in the Rust Belt?
Because her trade policies or whatever probably didn't come off as her general rhetoric wasn't very working class friendly like Trump's was
as opposed to Biden. Biden is known as to be very different on those trade policies, right?
Pokey W.
I don't think that, Mike. Are you going to be okay tomorrow?
No, well, what
you do know that tomorrow is the last day for Bernie's campaign, right? That he's done. Like you can sit here and play like you can try to play like all the game. He's not going to do better. He's destroyed. I don't know if you've seen the recent polling data.
I have seen it.
He's down like 30 plus points in multiple states. Tomorrow is
he better win. He better win. I mean, like, listen, this is the way it works. Like, you either win the delegates or you don't. I'm not delusional. I don't.
Would you bet on it?
I already bet on it 4 months ago that I never cashed out or backed out on. No, of course Mike's not going to bet on anything because he knows that he's full of shit 90% of the time he's talking.
I mean, if you bet, you get if you bet, you get big odds right now. That's for sure. It'd be very profitable if it happened. Well, I mean, listen, like this is the way it works. Like you're seemingly happy that Bernie Sanders is going to lose.
I'm not seemingly happy because I don't play team politics like you do. It's not a fucking
Why not?
Come out here because it's not entertaining to me. I don't like the idea of coming out and just simping hard for some fucking candidate. Like and then
so I have a question for you. Do you care about the policies? Do you care about the policies?
Yeah, of course I do.
That's why I'm simping for, as you say, simping for Bernie.
Sure, and if I cared about policies, I wouldn't pick somebody that's been in Congress for 40 fucking years that signed zero major legislation. None of Bernie's policies are getting passed.
Literally, the number one law passed by Obama in his second term was authored by Bernie Sanders and John McCain. You fucking idiot! It was the VA reform bill. So that,
nice.
And in fact,
nice. In his 40 years of Congress. He co-signed a VA reform bill.
What do you mean?
Nice.
And the ACA, the most significant expansion of the ACA was his community health centers, over $10 billion, which covers like 10 million more people under the ACA. That was Bernie Sanders. Like we can go down the list here. He's got plenty of great political outcomes and policies. We all know about the Amendment King, where he passed more roll call amendments. He's been on the reason why we're talking about free college, $15 minimum wage, all that shit is Bernie Sanders. I mean, he's the first independent congressman in 30 years when he won in Vermont. He did it by cucking the Democratic Party, which I'm sorry to tell you is going to happen again because young people are not going to come out for Joe Biden.
Young people already didn't come out for Bernie Sanders. They're not going to come out anyway.
It's primary.
It does. If they don't come out for the primary, they're not going to turn out for the general.
You're actually not even right. They did turn out.
They didn't.
Youth turnout is better in 2020 than it was in 2016.
Not as a percentage of total voters.
Now what happened, which this is something that is surprising, but maybe not, is boomer turnout was up even more. Boomer turnout was up even more, which is a surprising fact. But guess what? There's no Republicans running. So there's no Republicans running. So plenty of boomer moderates and conservatives can come out and vote in the Democratic primary, and it's no loss for them. So you think Republicans
are voting in the primaries, and that's the only reason why Biden was able to win some of these, or what was that?
Did I say that? I mean, are you incapable of listening to words that?
I'm just trying to figure out what you're like implying because you always have like a double meaning. I don't know what.
What I'm saying is exactly what I just said. Boomer turnout was up even more, but youth turnout was in fact up. Now primaries are low turnout affairs. They always have been. They've always been part of party activists, not the great mass of the people. Most normal fucking people don't vote in the primary. Most of them barely vote in the midterm. Most people vote every 4 years.
No one is denying that turnout for primaries is lower than turnout for main election seasons, of course.
In fact, there was just a study by Tufts University that was just put out about Super Tuesday, and it shows that youth turnout was up.
Mike, why are you
in almost every single state?
Youth turnout was up by absolute numbers, but as a per capita of the vote, it fell. And Bernie Sanders got less of it than he did last time as a per capita as well. Doesn't matter if a few more youth showed up, if every other age group is being motivated that much more. It means Bernie's revolution isn't happening.
I mean, Bernie won youth by massive numbers. I mean, he's up by like 50 points among youth. Now, the problem is that when you're running in a electoral contest against somebody who's doing well with the very elderly, you're probably going to lose unless you get much more progress within the elderly. The reason why Bernie Sanders
focused on that a little bit more then, huh?
Yes, absolutely. The problem that Bernie Sanders has is if you're asking me, Mike, do you have any criticism of Bernie? I'd love to launch into criticisms of the Bernie campaign. I don't know who you're talking to here. Like, I support Bernie Sanders because of the policies, because there's significant differences between Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders.
If you support him because of the policies, why do you encourage people not to vote in the general election?
I'm totally ambivalent between the two at this point. Maybe
you don't think there's a meaningful difference between like a Biden administration and a Trump administration for 4 more years?
I mean, yeah, of
Right.
course, there's going to be significant differences.
And you
between
don't?
the
Do you
two,
think
but-
down
but-
ballot voting is important? Because you're literally telling people on stream not to do down ballot voting. You don't care anymore.
I vote for. No, I told people on stream I'm voting for every candidate that supports Medicare for all. So I live in a swing
You
district.
told people on stream that you didn't care about voting down ballot votes. You didn't care. It didn't matter.
I might have corrected. That might be a clip that exists, but I corrected and said I'm going to be voting for all the candidates that support
Medicare for all.
So
So if they don't
For
support
example-
Medicare for all in like a vulnerable district, you'd say, nah, don't support them. Let the Republican win instead.
correct. I would say that.
Why?
Yeah, because the Democratic Party is full of people that have. We got 4 years of Trump, and the result is Joe Biden. Like there is no power for the and there's no power for the progressive
Where is
left.
the power for the progressives? If the best you can do to turn out a progressive candidate is literally an 80-year-old white Jewish guy, you couldn't find anybody fresher than that? Like, how are you going to say that, oh, well, Joe Biden sucks? Bernie Sanders isn't exactly a great candidate.
What does that
either.
say? Wait. What does that say about centrists? That the best person they could turn out is a 70-year-old old white guy with a rotten brain who does 7-minute speeches and who doesn't campaign because his campaign knows that if he is out there in public, he's going to embarrass himself.
What does it say about your candidate that he lost to a guy who didn't campaign?
Well,
I mean, like, at least Biden was like the vice president of Obama. That's probably where
Wait,
most of the
wait,
name recognition
so,
comes
like-
from. But I mean, come on, dude.
That's exactly right. I mean, Barack Obama and the Democratic Party behind the scenes didn't want to see significant change. They don't want the type of politics that Bernie Sanders is selling. They want a type of politics that is very corporate. They
This is
like
what
money
they-
in
No,
politics.
it's not
That's how
about
they make their money.
corporate. It's just that most of America, even the Democrats, aren't as far left as you wish they were.
That's not.
That
That's. I mean, the
absolutely
evidence
is the
just
case.
Is not.
That
that's evidence
absolutely
just
is the
not-
case.
Have
It
you
just
ever seen
is.
any of the exit polls, dude?
I mean, if you go like every single policy position, let's go through them.
Sure,
and you can
we
tell
can
me
go
where
through
they-
all the studies on Medicare for all, where every single candidate that ran on a Medicare for all platform did worse than people that didn't, especially in vulnerable
That's
districts.
not even true.
It
That's not even
absolutely
true.
is true.
I live in one of them, Destiny. I live in one of the most vulnerable districts in the entire country.
What does that have to do with
PA7.
anything?
My candidate in PA7, who flipped it from red to blue, is a fucking Medicare for all candidate. So my congresswoman is going to get my vote because she's a co-sponsor.
Holy
Directly
shit.
north of that.
Well, if
And
one
Joe
person
Biden-
did it,
and
oh
Joe
my God, you
Biden's
got it.
in Joe Biden's hometown of Scranton, Pennsylvania,
Uh-huh.
in a
Yeah,
district
Andy.
that Trump won by 15 points.
Mhm.
Matt Cartwright is the incumbent Democrat. Guess what? Co-sponsor of Medicare for all. I don't even know where you fucking get the idea that what happens is the DCCC does not support progressive candidates. They do not want progressive candidates. Do you?
May I chime in?
I mean, no. Shut the fuck
Okay.
up.
Well, it's something for Destiny.
Nathan
There's something
W.
ongoing right now called Operation Chaos.
Oh my God, shut the fuck
God,
up.
who gives a fuck? Okay, shut the fuck up. I don't care about
Okay,
this.
never mind.
I don't care. I don't give a fuck about
You
this.
were Mike's up.
The point is like if you actually, I mean, like voters do not care about Medicare for all. There was a study I read where it literally made no difference on whether the candidate they support that in 2018 if the candidate supported Medicare for all or not. It doesn't matter.
Okay, I
People
linked
are
the thing
voting
in
for the
voice
party.
comrade text. I mean, I've seen this thrown around a lot. I haven't seen any good reputations of it. But like when you
Oh, okay,
control
hold
for
on.
all of the different
Sure.
candidates that were running under Medicare for all platform, even when you control for other policies, it seemed like Medicare for all was a pretty unfavorable position to run on, especially in vulnerable districts.
But this is not. By the way, I mean Medicare for all is not the only policy.
Okay, what
That
other
is a
policies
progressive
is it? Is it
policy.
the Green New Deal that has no support in Congress?
The Green New Deal that has 80% support among the American people. You
How
know,
many people do
$15
you think
minimum
actually
wage.
know what the fuck any of it actually is?
I mean, people support a fucking jobs guarantee. I don't think you realize how far left people are in economic
I
policy.
know that, and this is what this whole election cycle has been on. Is all of this? I don't think you realize what all the people support. I don't think you realize, bro. I don't think you have any
I
fucking
think
idea.
no. I don't think you realize how people vote. They don't vote on policy. Have you ever believed that they vote on policy?
Then why do you ever think that Bernie Sanders is going to win? Why do you care about his policies? What do you mean? What do you think they vote on?
Okay.
Wasn't there a thing
People vote
Mhm.
for a variety of eclectic fucking grabastic opinions. Some people do indeed vote on policy, especially people that are disengaged from politics. You're not going to engage them by running the same old campaign, the narrow target of the persuadable voter campaign, the small ball shit that Hillary Clinton tried to run in the suburbs of Philadelphia. That's not going to work. People get motivated for all sorts of reasons. One of them is transformative policies. Bernie Sanders also has his own sort of charisma, and that's why he appeals to young people because of his authenticity. That is a special.
What if we just spin another narrative and say he appeals to young people because young people are stupid and gullible, and that's why he has no support from any older voter? Like
older voters do like Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders has a positive approval rating among younger voters.
No one cares about approval rating, where everybody has like 60, 70, 80% approval. It's who do you vote for, Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden? And he absolutely
why are they voting? Why are they voting for Joe Biden?
Probably because he's a recognizable face and people like the way that he talks. He's Uncle Joe or whatever, and then he's like a relative.
Wait! They don't like the way he talks. He doesn't campaign. You just said he won in states where he didn't campaign.
I'm sorry. Is the only place you see a person talking on the campaign trail? People know of Joe Biden.
He didn't run any fucking ads. He didn't campaign. He had no campaign.
If he's in a state, if he's in a state and he didn't campaign there or run an ad there, you just have no idea who Joe Biden is. All those low information voters are really coming to bite you in the ass, aren't they?
He has name recognition. Absolutely. It was Joe.
So
he was
Bernie.
Barack Obama.
Bernie's had name recognition for 4 years, my dude. He ran an entire other election cycle. How are you going to cry and say name recognition is what Biden is winning on?
Jesus. They know him because he is what? Considered the most electable candidate by the mainstream media. Based on what, by the way? What's the evidence?
So all of this is just the mainstream media leading these low information voters around. But the Bernie bros, those are guys that actually are politically savvy.
Well, okay, so I have a question for you. Now, do you think that political coverage, news coverage of this campaign has characterized Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden as the same electability? That nominating either one of them, nominating either one of them will be the same against Trump. Basically, why not?
Why not? For a variety.
I mean, if you go by the polling averages in RCP right now, in Michigan, heads up, they're the same. In Pennsylvania, heads up, they're the same. In Wisconsin, heads up, they're the same against Trump. So within a point or two, or less than a point. So why is the electability narrative constantly dogging Bernie but not dogging Biden? Do you think I don't think it's relevant. Bias?
I don't think that the media saying that Bernie is not electable is driving. I don't think you can simultaneously say, "Oh no, look, the media is killing Bernie," blah blah blah, and then look at the audiences that he gets for his speeches. Go, "Oh look, actually everybody loves Bernie," blah blah blah. Like, is Bernie's message really appealing to people? Do a lot of people love his messaging and they go out and that's why they're so motivated to vote for him and that's why he's got such high blah blah youth turnout or whatever? Or is the media poisoning everybody's mind against him? Like, what is it? Look how much money he gets in donations. Like,
it's pretty simple. This is very simple. Like, young people are not affected by mainstream media narratives because I don't know if you noticed, but they're not watching cable news. They have alternative sources of media. They have alternative sources of information like my stream, your stream. They're not involved in the typical political conversation. They have their alternative forms. Whereas elderly voters, they're spending a lot of time watching cable news. They're spending a lot of time referencing with the opinions of party elders. Like, that is where that's why Joe Biden is performing well among older voters, because those older voters are closely aligned with traditional media. That's why Mike Bloomberg's $500 million on television ads got him a lot of votes with old people because they watch TV ads. So it's not very complicated to say Joe Biden is doing well because he's typically thought of pretty positively by the average Democratic voter. And he's performing well amongst the voters that turn out at the highest rates, which is elderly voters. And those voters have been immersed in narratives saying Joe Biden is the most electable. Party elders agree. Vote for Joe Biden to get Trump out of office. And beating Donald Trump is the number one priority of these older voters. Whereas with young voters...
Who spent the most on ads this campaign cycle after Bloomberg?
I'm sure probably Bernie because he had the most money.
Call of Duty
and where do those ads show up on?
I mean, you're talking orders of magnitude less.
Sure, cable news probably, right? I'm sure there have been ads that have been shown on radio stations.
I doubt he had the money to do a full court press on television in places like Texas and California. Even though he had the most money.
Didn't Bernie spend, behind Bloomberg? I'm pretty sure he has like the most money in his campaign. So
I mean,
it seems like just showing.
He spent like what? He spent like what?
400 or 500 million or something?
Like Bloomberg spent like $600 million, which was more than Hillary Clinton spent on her entire general election and primary campaign and television ads. Like, Bloomberg spent more money on ads than anyone has ever spent before. So it's a little bit of a different ad environment than the traditional.
Sure, I'm just
fucking
saying that if we
campaign.
were just saying that ads alone were propelling Bloomberg to where he's at, Bernie's ran a fuck ton of ads too. And Bernie, when he became the front runner, started to get quite a bit of favorable coverage when he had that nice town hall where they threw a bunch of easy questions at him. That one dude that made that weird fucking it's not Chris Wallace, the guy that made the weird comparison to the
Chris
fucking
Matthews.
Chris Matthews, the Nazis. That dude ended up quitting. Like, everybody roasted the fuck out of him for his weird ass fucking comments. And despite all of the favorable media coverage, it didn't seem like Bernie built any more of a coalition. It was a pretty short time where he's a front runner, but this idea, this narrative that it's just cable news, this idea that it's literally just cable news that's poisoning the well against Bernie.
Let's examine what happened. So Joe Biden, after losing Nevada by 28 points, went to South Carolina, and the entire Democratic establishment, we're talking about Barack Obama on down, reckoned with the idea that Bernie Sanders was, if nothing changed, going to be the Democratic nominee. They took stock of the remaining moderate alternatives to Bernie Sanders and said, Joe Biden is winning in South Carolina. He's our only hope of stopping Bernie. And with the South Carolina machine, effective, as you say, politics, I don't have a problem with any of this, honestly. I think this is the way politics works. And the fact that Bernie Sanders was not capable or not able to arrest this is why he didn't do well on Super Tuesday, because the moderates were able to coalesce behind Joe Biden. He did best in the state most favorable to him probably in the entire country, South Carolina, and he pulled off a, frankly, solid victory. You combine that with a favorable media coverage, you combine that with all the rest of the moderates doing that synchronized swim dropout, creating this kind of inevitability, and building on the case of him as the electable candidate. He got almost all of the late-breaking voters. And Elizabeth Warren staying in, splitting progressive votes, led to Bernie Sanders losing narrowly in a lot of states that he needed to win, and Joe Biden performing well enough that the math is the math. Unless something happens significantly tomorrow or now today, Bernie Sanders is not going to have the delegates needed to win.
So you're telling me that the strategy for Bernie Sanders was that he needed 3 moderates competing against themselves, or 4 moderates competing against themselves, in order for him to get a plurality of the delegates?
No. My simple argument is, if Bernie Sanders did not have the political pull to get Elizabeth Warren to drop out and endorse him, and she had basically the same platform as him on most issues.
Do you think that
shows incredible weakness?
If we look,
what do you want me to say?
If we look back, then do you think Hillary was right when she said nobody likes Bernie?
I mean, I think that the idea that nobody likes Bernie in Washington is probably pretty damn close to true.
Why were people so mad when she said it then? Because Bernie didn't take that nice. He said that people liked him. Bernie's even switched his tune on Obama now, and he's starting to play towards Obama voters. When he recently came out and said Obama was a good friend.
Well, I mean, like, okay. So, I mean, I guess we have, like, different ideas of politics. So for me, like, I recognize the Democratic Party as a abject failure and has had barely any political power for the last 20 years, right? Like, you agree with that, right?
Not necessarily, but go ahead.
Like, we held the Congress for 2 years during Obama's presidency.
Mm-hmm.
We now have a Supreme Court. We haven't had a liberal Supreme Court since 1965.
Yeah, but the question is that the fault of the Democratic Party, or is that just changing American opinion?
I mean, I guess it's the question of whether or not you think politics at all is just totally random and we just kind of bounce along with it, or that there is some sort of leadership and material conditions that result in people making decisions.
Politicians aren't there to just make decisions. Politicians are there to represent the will of the people that elected them. That's the point of being a politician that's held democratically accountable to your constituency.
Right. Wait, okay, so absolutely. So do you think that Donald Trump is democratically accountable? He's like making decisions in the best interest of the people? Like, what's...
I think that he was elected by people that definitely support the fuck out of him. Yeah, for sure. He's got like, what is it, like a fucking 96% approval, something insane. It's always over 90%. His approval rating is insane right now.
Okay, I have a question. Do you think Donald Trump Assuming Joe Biden. So this is the candidate you wanted. So you got.
Whoa! I never said I wanted any candidate. Okay, so don't try to pin me with
well,
Biden. I don't give a fuck.
I had a clip of you saying Buttigieg, and then another clip of you saying. Biden,
I'm like okay-ish against a lot of like Buttigieg's positions. Sure, I maybe softly with him.
So you said, and I know you had the Biden as your like Twitter.
Yeah, because I know it mauls the fuck out of people like you. Yeah.
Why would it maul me? Why do I care?
Well, I mean, you can pretend not to care now, but you screaming and drooling on your stream like a couple weeks ago after Bernie won a couple shitty caucuses, I mean, clearly painted a different picture of you. My talking points have been more or less the exact same over the past 3 or 4 months, but you can pretend not to care now.
My talking points are this. I think that Joe Biden is a incredibly weak general election candidate in the electorally college significant Rust Belt states, that his support of NAFTA, his support of TPP, his support of the bankruptcy bill, his support of basically the Iraq war. He's been on the wrong side of almost every major cleavage in the Democratic Party, let alone the country. And Donald Trump is going to go, and frankly, I don't think he's all that good of a campaigner. In his 4 other campaigns for president, he'd never won a state until South Carolina this cycle. I think he's going to get fucking destroyed by Donald Trump, and I think putting him up with is madness. I think his policies are inferior. That's why I don't support Joe Biden.
And you don't think the idea of putting up a heart-attacked candidate that calls himself a socialist, you don't think there'd be any problems in the general?
Joe Biden has 2 brain aneurysms.
How long ago? Half the people don't even know about that. Bernie Sanders had a heart attack fucking
Wait, you don't think the Republicans are going to make sure that people are aware of this shit?
Sure, they might, but it's not going to hit as hard as Bernie literally had to cut his fucking campaigning in half because he had a heart attack while he was campaigning for the nomination.
I mean, literally, Mike Bloomberg had the same exact condition.
No one's talking about Bloomberg's condition.
Well, I said the point. Ultimately, like you're just cherry picking some random.
I'm not cherry picking anything. Did Bloomberg have an aneurysm on the fucking trail now?
No.
Did that happen recently?
No, he did. So what time? How long ago does it need to be before it's not significant?
Like when the media is relevant. Like who's running for president now and has had an aneurysm or a heart attack? Bernie Sanders.
And Joe Biden. Joe Biden has 2 brain aneurysms that have been surgically repaired.
On the campaign trail?
Not on the campaign trail.
Then it sounds like people probably don't really care then.
Well, I guess we're going to find out, right?
I guess we are. I mean, we've already found.
I guess we're going to find out.
Here's the hard fact.
I wish Bernie Sanders would run harder against Joe Biden, but my friend Joe Biden, that's his mistake. Is he didn't run.
That's the reason he didn't make it.
No. I think that's one of the many reasons is that progressives have a hard time attacking their opponent. Like the same thing with Hillary Clinton. He said, I don't care about the damn emails. And Hillary Clinton asked about the turning points of the Democratic primary in 2016 says when Bernie Sanders said, I don't care about the damn emails, that was a turning point for her campaign. That was Bernie Sanders saying to the electorate, don't worry about the emails. Well, how'd that fucking work out?
So if Bernie would have gone hard on the emails in Benghazi, you think Bernie would have beat Hillary in 2016?
Not necessarily. I don't think Benghazi is a good story, but I think that he should have gone harder against her. Should have called her corrupt for her speeches. He should have actually ran a bare knuckle campaign and gone for the win instead of pussyfooting around the attacks. The same thing with Joe Biden. Should have went hard against him the entire time about the Social Security cuts, the Medicare cuts, all the policies that I find abhorrent with Joe Biden from the Iraq war on. He should have drawn a clear distinction between himself and Joe Biden.
I thought you said people don't really vote on policies, though. Would that really have mattered that much?
I mean, I guess we'll have to. We will never know.
Well, we are knowing right now. Bernie has lost one election cycle in 2016, and now he's in the process of losing this one.
But he didn't do what I'm suggesting. So we don't know what the world would be if he did.
Yeah, Biden's last brain aneurysm was in 1988.
So, I mean, obviously, okay. I mean, hey, listen, I just watched the guy speak, and he can't get a sentence out. So that's my personal judgment.
Maybe he should try Bernie's strategy, just repeating the same 6 sentences over and over and over again. maybe he would have a better
I don't know.
shot.
Bernie Sanders just did a town hall on Fox News tonight, my dude. It seems like he did plenty of new sentences there.
Sure, and Biden has also done town halls where he's done plenty of good
Where?
sentences.
When? When his eye exploded in blood? Like, what are you fucking talking about?
I mean, like, we can cherry pick, like, any bad statement you want. Biden definitely has more gaffes than others. He also has a really bad stutter. He also sounds worse than he did in 2016, sure. But, like, it's not like Biden is constantly gaffing.
Okay. So now that we're here, let me just ask you this question. Do you think that Joe Biden is going to debate Donald Trump effectively?
I don't know who would debate who effectively. It's impossible to know.
Okay. Okay, so you're just gonna say I don't know. So you
I
think
really
he'll be a
don't.
good candidate.
I think that it's possible that people see Biden stutter around on stage and they think he's a total buffoon and he looks like an idiot and then people hate him. It's also possible that they see him stutter around and they think he's endearing and he comes off as an uncle or whatever. I thought listening to Trump that Trump sounded like a fucking moron every single time he spoke, but people like that shit too. I don't know.
Oh,
maybe
no.
Bernie,
I mean, they
maybe
sounded
Bernie,
like a moron.
Maybe Bernie would have went on stage. Maybe Bernie would have been impassioned. People would have loved his fire or whatever, and they would have rallied behind him and all that shit.
We don't know.
Or maybe he would have just gotten hit over and over again for being a literal socialist that sucks off fucking Fidel Castro, and then everybody would have fucking hated him. I don't know, Mike. It's hard to say. These things could have gone either way. To pretend
Most
like
Americans don't give a shit about
to
Castro.
pretend like what you know what Hispanic voters in Florida might. I guess we'll find out. Is that tomorrow? We'll find out how those votes turn out.
No, it's not. That's not tomorrow. Florida's not tomorrow.
Okay,
but,
whenever the Florida thing is, but
No. I mean, listen, like
these could have gone either. These could have gone either way. The idea that like Bernie clearly would have trounced any of these debates, that's just not necessarily true. We don't know that. We've seen even on stage right now in some of the past debates where Bernie's had pretty lackluster performance against other Democrats that haven't been going that hard on him. So I mean, like I don't know. It's possible that Bernie.
No, I don't think he's actually had a bad debate.
You don't think any of Bernie's debates have been bad at all?
At worst, he gets a C+. There's no really terrible debates. But Joe Biden, on the other hand, frequently looks confused. I mean, he can't maintain coherent thoughts. We were just gonna have to agree to disagree. I think that when the reason why Joe Biden is not campaigning publicly and making speeches is because his campaign judges that his performance is so poor that it would be damaging to his campaign. And luckily for them, it seems like it's gonna work out.
Well, if Bernie lost to that, Bernie was never going to make it in the general anyway. So at least we saved ourselves that.
Well, I mean, like, okay, so like, how ultimately, I know that most voters are pretty not involved in politics. They don't watch it frequently. They're not watching it all the time. Frankly, the bandwagon effect is huge, and Bernie Sanders failed to accumulate sufficient amount of external validators to his campaign. That's a fatal flaw of his campaign. If we're going to run another progressive candidate, they're going to need to do a lot better at consolidating the progressive vote and getting external validators.
Sure, but this has always been a chief criticism of Bernie Sanders that you've just hand-waved off. The fact that he's not politically effective. Whether we're talking about running a campaign now, whether we're talking about being politically effective in Congress,
there's different
or whether
types
we're talking
of ways of being politically effective.
If you can't even get endorsements from representatives on the campaign trail, like how do you think you're going to... Nowhere near as many as Biden did.
I mean, like later in the cycle, sure. Biden was like traditionally way behind where a establishment VP would be. He barely got any. Like, it's not just me that thinks Joe Biden's a weak candidate.
Biden has always had a solid lead.
That was the Democratic establishment thought. Like, why do you think there were so many candidates in this race?
Biden has been leading in endorsements for the entire race. Like it's not. It hasn't been close.
He's like way behind the curve as far.
I don't know what the curve is right now. I'm pretty sure you don't either. But so I'll just concede that to you. I don't know what the curve is, but I know that he's got like 10 times as many as Bernie when it comes to like representatives and mayors and party leaders, senators.
I'd have to look at this, but yeah, I mean, so why do you think there were so many candidates in this race? If Joe Biden was a good candidate, why did 5, 10, 15 people run against him?
I don't know, because people saw an opportunity to run. I guess you'd have to ask them why.
I mean, because he's a catastrophically weak frontrunner, and this is without a doubt also true of Bernie Sanders. The truth is he does not have the support of the establishment. He was behind enough in establishment support. Like, ultimately, what we're looking at here is a situation where we have an extremely oppositional Democratic Party to Bernie Sanders. They're opposed to him for ideological reasons.
Why can't they just be opposed to him? Because he's not a winner. Because they don't think he's going to actually bring it home for the Democrats in 2020.
Because there's no evidence to support that. That would just be their opinion, man.
How about the fact that he doesn't seem to have a strong coalition of minority voters compared to Biden? How about the fact that he can't make it through the primary? How about what
the fuck are you talking about? They were strongly opposed to him. They were doing Stop Bernie meetings last year that had nothing to do with his performance in these primaries.
What do you mean by Stop Bernie meetings?
the literal meetings among Democratic leaders saying, how are we going to stop Bernie Sanders from being the Democratic nominee?
I don't believe this. I don't think that was happening.
Okay, you'll gift me how many subs when I show you?
I'm not going to gift you subs. You're not worth it.
But yet you're here. You came to my Discord.
Yeah, because talking to you is not gifting you subs. Do you not understand the difference?
But you said you won't believe it.
I just want to see a story. I'm still waiting, by the way, for that story where top DNC leaders were telling Warren that she needed to stay in to sabotage Bernie. I'm also waiting on that one too.
You've we haven't talked in how many months? You came to my Discord when I was in my own chat, and I chatted with you because I feel like you needed to get this out of your system. But here, I put it. Let me put it to. And yeah, you're trying to spike the football because you picked not Bernie. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Here you go.
That's always been my prediction, though. My prediction is
New York Times. Here's the New York Times article about Stop Sanders Democrats are agonizing over his momentum. I'll get a quote for you. And here's it. The matter of what to do about Bernie and the larger imperative of party unity, for example, hovered over a series of previously undisclosed Democratic dinners in New York and Washington organized by longtime party financier Bernard Schwartz. The gatherings have included scores from the moderate or center-left wing of the party, including Speaker Nancy Pelosi of California, Senator Chuck Schumer of New York, former Governor Terry McAuliffe of Virginia, Mayor Pete Buttigieg of South Bend, Indiana, and the president of the Center for American Progress, Neera Tanden. So, like, all these, when I say that they were literal stop Bernie meetings, these are ideological. These are not based on like numbers on how he performs against Trump. They don't want to have a progressive president.
Why do you think it's more they don't want to have a progressive president rather than they're just worried that they would take somebody past the convention that would be unelectable? That the majority of the Democratic Party wouldn't
evidence
support.
to support the idea that he's unelectable.
Except for
Trump.
the fact that Democrats don't vote for him. But you
Okay,
think that's
you're now
because...
doing circular logic where the Democratic Party has done extraordinary efforts to defeat Bernie Sanders by signaling he's unelectable in their ideologically aligned corporate media, and have spent and Barack Obama has helped coordinate a consolidation around Joe Biden as evidence that he could lose to Trump, but that's not what that proves.
Why didn't Barack Obama just endorse Biden if he's like working so hard behind the scenes to fuck over Bernie?
I mean, why did he work so hard behind the scenes to prevent the election of the DNC chair that was supportive of Bernie Sanders, Keith Ellison?
I don't know. I'm asking you. Why didn't he come out and support Biden?
Ideologically, well, I mean, I guess he didn't think Biden had the stuff. Like, remember, I don't know if you remember, but he was quoted as saying to Joe, "You don't have to do this." And there's a reason why so many candidates joined the race against Biden, because they didn't think he had the stuff.
First of all, Biden came into the race after most of these candidates, right? Biden joined the race pretty fucking late. I know there was a lot of talks of him joining the race.
I think he joined in what, March, February? Pretty early, actually. Traditionally, that's pretty early. I mean, like. I mean, like, and as far as like the race goes, like,
hold on, I thought he joined in like May. I thought it was very late. It was insanely late. I'm pretty sure that there were like tons of people campaigning. Booker, Yang, fucking Amy.
I think Warren entered like. He did in April. It was April.
April 25th. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. When did Hillary Clinton enter the race?
Warren entered a full 2 months before Biden.
I'm
pretty sure Biden was the last person to join the race.
Hillary entered the race in 2016 on April 12th, 2015. So like April is pretty standard time. It's not
okay. You can call it standard, but he was literally the last person in besides Bloomberg. So.
I mean, okay. I mean, like, but everybody looked at Joe Biden as a possibility of running and said we could beat Joe Biden. I mean, like, all the stuff I'm saying about his like diminished capacity is something that was openly said on the debate stage by Tim Ryan, Julian Castro. Like, even Kamala Harris and Cory Booker laughed in his face when he said that he had the support of the only African American woman senator to ever serve. And Kamala Harris is like, "What? I'm right here." Like all the ideas that I'm proposing that Joe Biden is a weak candidate is pretty much conventional wisdom.
You say conventional wisdom, but it's not supported by any polling data. Like you can say conventional wisdom, but in head-to-heads.
Okay, if we're going by polling data, then Bernie Sanders is very electable against Trump head-to-head.
But Biden outperforms him.
So by marginal.
Doesn't matter. He still outperforms him.
By maybe a point. So wait, you're going to go an extraordinary effort to try to block it. But Pete Buttigieg loses to Trump in most head-to-head polls. So did everybody go out of their way to defeat Pete Buttigieg?
You didn't have to.
No.
Pete Buttigieg was never popular. No one cares about Pete Buttigieg.
I mean, you thought that he was he was your favorite candidate. So what's that say about you?
It says that I liked his policies. I never thought he was going to win ever.
I mean,
we're talking about two different things. Whether or not we like
Iowa, wait. Even in Iowa, even after Iowa, you never thought he had a chance? I have to go back and watch your show.
Yeah, I said maybe he had it's possible if he does some miraculous shit. I also said the same about Warren when she had her huge spike, and I said the same about Kamala Harris as well. It's possible, sure. When an untested candidate grows really big, that they could have like an Obama moment or some shit and come out of nowhere. Yeah, it's possible, sure. But I never thought that like Pete had a good chance of winning. Of course not.
You never had a candidate, is what we said earlier. So obviously,
in terms of like policy positions, it would probably have been somebody like Pete, or maybe fucking Steyer or fucking Delaney. I don't know, some moderate progressive
Pete?
Dem or whatever.
Which Pete? The one that supported Medicare for all, or the one that later was against Medicare for all? I can't keep up.
I don't know if Pete ever supported Medicare for all. I have to look back. I'm pretty sure that wasn't true. I feel like I read an article about that. That's something that people spin really badly.
He went on.
I don't support any policy that's more extreme than every other healthcare plan on earth. No, I don't.
There's
support that.
when what do you say more extreme? You're referring to the fact that it doesn't allow duplicate coverage and it covers more than any other.
And it has zero co-payments, zero deductibles, zero prescription costs. Yes.
No, it's $200 a year for prescriptions.
Well, when Bernie gets on stage, he always says no co-pays, no deductibles, no. Okay, so $200 a year flat. Is that like a tax, or is that like something you pay into the plan, or what?
You pay it when you get the prescription. You pay up to $200 out of pocket. So you want to see more like out of pocket costs?
Yeah, scale to income. Yeah, of course.
and so is the goal here to deter care?
The goal is to fund the system. One.
Well, why not just raise taxes on people that can afford to pay it rather than like when people use drugs?
Because you can't just raise taxes.
So
wait. Because you can't just raise that much in taxes. We're not talking about a couple $1 million or a couple $1 billion. No, we're not. You can't. Even Bernie's own plans are unfunded on the order of trillions of dollars. I think $7 trillion was the most favorable one I saw recently.
If you look at Scandinavian countries, they collect double the amount in taxes than we do.
We're not a Scandinavian country.
Why? So what? Okay. So you're saying it's impossible for us to pass the laws?
I'm saying that if we can pass a law that is much easier to fund and has roughly the same effectiveness, we should probably go for that rather than shoving through the one that's going to cause, like, not only do we have this radically different Medicare law, we also have to radically change our tax structure as well. Yeah, it's probably better to ease into it.
And did we...
Uh-oh, hello?
You still there, Mike? I think Mike cut out.
Hold on. Am I here?
Oh, there he is. Yeah, you're here.
Right, sorry, I just had like a lag spike there. So did we ease into Social Security? Did we ease into Medicare? Like, where's this easing in fetish you have?
I don't know exactly how Medicare and Social Security start. I'm pretty sure that if I go back and read as I do in all of these conversations, it's going to be completely different than how you.
18 months.
It doesn't. But that's not relevant. It doesn't matter. It's not relevant. The fact of the matter is,
you just have a fetish for easing into things.
No, I don't have a fetish for it. It's called political effectiveness. That thing that we just both agreed that Bernie Sanders completely fucking lacks.
Bernie Sanders' policy was over a 4-year transition period.
4 years is nothing. That's instant.
It's plenty of time.
It's not. To raise that money, he even in his own plans, even with the suggested taxes, he wasn't able to raise anywhere near enough money for it. He still was short on an order of trillions for funding this.
We're short $1 trillion right now with our current budget.
Our current budget deficit is $1 trillion?
Yeah. We just cut massive taxes on the wealthy.
Hold on, I'm just checking it. Okay, about 700 billion. Okay, so what does that have to do with anything?
But so like you're screeching about covering. Well, first of all, Bernie Sanders has proposed If you go on his website, you can see all the different ways he's going to pay for it.
We've already seen those. I'm talking about independent people that actually evaluate how much money he can raise for these programs.
And the independent studies, for example, in the Lancet. I know
the Lancet study was garbage. I do know that study was really.
Oh wait, the Lancet. Okay, Dr. Destiny is going to tell me that the Lancet, which is one of the most prestigious journals, he's going to just discard it because he's decided that it's garbage. Are you fucking serious right now, dude?
So if you actually look at that Lancet study...
Wait. You know more than the Yale epidemiologists and the Lancet. That's your position?
You do know that an epidemiologist has nothing to do with healthcare funding, Mike, right? That you have no say, you have no fucking education over funding healthcare and doing policy.
The Lancet has put out... Let me get this straight. I'm listening to you here. The Lancet has put out garbage science.
Yes.
Is what you're saying.
This study was garbage. I invite you to look through it
sometime. Okay, well, there are 22 other studies on Medicare for All that have been collected showing that it saves significant money and provides better coverage. So if you're looking as far as science and evidence, the evidence is that Medicare for All is the most effective. Now, what you're saying is politically, Mike, it's not feasible. Now, when I ask you, how is Joe Biden going to pass this shit? It's going through the same problems that the Bernie Sanders policies do, which is he's got to make it through the Senate, and the Republicans have zero interest in expanding the ACA. So he's going to need to do it with Democratic votes.
Yeah, you have to flip seats in Congress, yeah.
So, I mean, the political plausibility of Bernie Sanders winning the presidency on a Medicare for All platform, and then he's going to turn around and run into his Democrats are going to sabotage that. He's not going to be able to pass anything. I mean, like...
They're not going to support things that are going to lose them elections in vulnerable districts. No.
Okay, so is the single-payer system in Canada unpopular?
We're not Canadian. Why do you think that...
Wait, so Americans are exceptional, you could say. And that every other polity in the entire developed world has some sort of universal healthcare system. And we're going to be the one that finally rejects it. We want our insurance premiums back. We want our deductibles back. Please, vote them all out.
Firstly, most Americans are actually happy with their insurance, believe it or not. Secondly, yeah, we are kind of exceptional in that we're the only country that doesn't have a socialized healthcare system. So by definition, yeah, we are exceptional. Yeah.
Okay, so we've failed, but what you've made a leap of logic where you go from we don't have it now, therefore if we got it, it would be unpopular.
I never said that. I said that it's unpopular.
You just said that if they voted for it, they would lose their seats.
I said that right now it seems to be unpopular with the broader American people.
Okay, yes. So if it passed and went into place, it would continue to be unpopular?
It's possible it's possible that people would like it after that. But you have to pass it first. How are you going to pass it without the votes, Mike?
How are you going to pass the public option without the votes?
Well, hopefully a public option appeals to enough moderates that you can bring them on board with the legislation. Sure as fuck isn't going to be that with single payer.
We went through this same rigmarole already, right? With the same arguments. Like the public option was part of Barack Obama's campaign in 2008 until
and they didn't have the votes to do it. So why do you think they would have the votes to do single payer?
They did indeed have the votes.
They didn't though.
They had 55. They didn't have 60 because the filibuster still exists. And as far as I know, Joe Biden is in favor of the filibuster, right?
Wait, so do you think we should eliminate the filibuster?
Absolutely.
Okay, even if we did eliminate the filibuster, we'll ignore the implications of that. Even if we did eliminate the filibuster, Democrats still aren't going to have 51 Senate seats next election cycle. So
if they don't, then this is all moot. Then it comes down to what do you think someone's going to do with executive orders? And Joe Biden, compared to Bernie Sanders has a far more expansive view of the executive orders. This is all the reasons why I support Bernie Sanders.
So you think that Bernie Sanders could pass single-payer healthcare with executive orders?
No, of course not.
What was the point of bringing up executive orders?
You're laser focused on single-payer as the only policy, right?
Well, no.
But Bernie Sanders has a whole panoply of policies. Some of which are legislative, some of which are not. And I look at Joe Biden, and I don't see him performing... Joe Biden doesn't even want to legalize marijuana. This guy is...
I'm pretty sure Biden has said he is in favor of decriminalizing marijuana.
No, he doesn't. He's against it. I think he just had a comment where he said it was like a gateway drug. This guy's out of the fucking 80s, dude. That's why I'm pretty unexcited, because I feel like he's not going to do
So
well.
Biden said in Tuesday when he was campaigning in New Hampshire, I think it's at the point where it has to be basically legalized. Maybe he didn't mean it, or...
All right, hold on.
Also, I don't know why we've pivoted to Biden's position on marijuana, but...
Well, we're just having a freewheeling conversation.
Well, the free-rolling conversation, I don't know how you think single-payer healthcare was ever going to pass if we don't have 51. You're saying that we don't have 51 seats in the Senate, none of this matters.
Okay, I mean, I can give you a whole path that's plausible if you'd like.
What is the whole path?
I mean, first of all, the Democrats need to retake the Senate via the elections that are up. So they've got to win Colorado. They've got to win Iowa. They've got to win Maine. They're probably going to lose Alabama, right? I think there's one other race in Georgia that they have an outside chance at, but they're probably not going to get that. So if they win the 3, then they can narrowly flip the Senate.
May I chime in on Georgia?
No! Fuck's sake. No one chimes in but me and Destiny at this point.
Chat,
All right.
I don't
I'm
know
sorry.
what's
I'm
going
sorry
on.
for explaining this, but this is the way it is. All right. Bernie Sanders has proposed we need to admit Puerto Rico as a state. And maybe that won't happen. We need to get senatorial representation for the District of Columbia. We need to actually do some radical fucking shit. And if we get 4 more Democratic senators, we repeal the fucking filibuster, and we provide a broad-based pressure campaign on the Democratic senators, it's possible. However, by no means is getting this single payer going to be an easy task. I don't think anybody has any illusions about that. Nobody has illusions about that. But we need, like, right now, like, the Senate as a now Bernie Sanders says he doesn't support the filibuster. I want to point this out before somebody he wants the quote vice president to rule on what things are covered or not covered by the filibuster, and which is basically another way of saying get rid of the filibuster without getting rid of the filibuster.
Bernie does not want to repeal the filibuster. He wants to pass Medicare for all through budget reconciliation.
That's right, which takes 51 votes.
Okay.
So, like, all this, I mean, like, this is all the same obstacles that Bernie Sanders is facing for Medicare for all, he's going to face for the public option. The insurance companies are not going to want to have a robust public option. Like, we're all aware of this, right? The drug companies are not going to want to negotiate for drug prices.
Wait, why wouldn't insurance companies want the public option?
Because it'll be two possible results. One, the public option is so robust that people flee to it, and it's subsidized at a rate that makes it impossible for them to compete. Or it'll be so piss poor, and it'll be a dumping ground for adverse selection. So, in other words, insurance companies will cherry pick healthy people, and they will have a good business case for unloading sick people onto the public option, in which case it'll cost way more than projected. So the public option is a bad policy.
Wouldn't that actually make the public option an amazing policy? If a whole bunch of the sickest of Americans were the ones that were dumped onto the policy that are getting subsidized the most by the government, private health insurance would be able to bring its price down. People that have private insurance would be able to save money.
Right, but you're missing the other side of the equation, which is the financing goes upside down because you don't have healthy people paying premiums into the public option.
Well, of course you do. You pay it via taxes. What do you mean?
That's right. So have to pay significant subsidies. It blows a huge hole in the budget.
No. What do you mean? You would raise
because
taxes
the public option. Okay, the reason why the public option is being proposed is that you pay for it via the premiums collected, sort of like every other insurance policy. But if you don't,
my understanding is that the public option can be heavily subsidized by the government. This idea that it has to be paid
but if you do that, then it's going to be then the other insurance policies will not compete because their premiums will not be too high.
You can scale that to income. You don't have to subsidize it the same for everybody, Mike.
Okay, so what you're saying is that the public option will not have adverse selection because you're going to ensure that the subsidies for wealthier people, which is a small pool of actual people, is going to be low, so they'll choose to go into private insurance, but it will pay for itself when the sick, poor people are all in the public option. It's not going to
Wait,
result in... How are you going to pay for that? It's like in order to pay for it, you have to raise taxes. This is
of course you have to raise taxes, Mike. It's fucking social health care. Of course you do.
It's the same thing with the...
It's not the same thing because you're not covering 000. You're not doing no cost of fucking prescriptions, no co-pays, no deductibles across the entire fucking population. And adverse selection on a government subsidized plan is probably a beneficial thing because those adverse people go to that plan rather than being in the private markets. That's fine. It's okay to pay a higher tax on that. Of course you're going to have to raise taxes for any form of universal health care. You think I think differently? You think I think there's some public option that exists that isn't going to require a tax hike? Of course it is.
So this is the whole point.
No.
Why are we maintaining the private system if all it does is soak up all the healthy, wealthy individuals and provides a good business case for the insurance companies, but all the sick and poor people are put onto the public option, which requires heavy taxes and high subsidization from the regular budget? Why not just dispense with the private insurance market if it's not functioning?
It is functioning, though.
Healthcare.
It's functioning in that people are buying health insurance.
Functioning to generate profit for the insurance companies, but not for the social provision of health.
It generates profit for the insurance companies, and it provides a service to the people that buy insurance from them if they choose to do so. People, if they want the option to do it, that's fine. You can have a public option and still have people. Right. You laugh, but we do this with private. We literally do this with private schools right now, Mike. Like, why would a rich person send their kid to a private school and still pay taxes for public school? People do it all the fucking time, Mike. That's literally how it works right now.
Is that good? Is our education system?
Didn't say that our education system is good. I'm just saying that
you
economic.
Just proposed it as a good example.
I proposed it as an example where we can have a system where people pay a private premium to have private access to things.
Private schools. I know you went to private schools.
Oh my God, dude.
So.
You can have no, hold on. I don't need you to explain anything. All I'm saying is that it's possible for you to pay privately for a premium or some sort of luxury thing that you also still pay a public tax on for other people that can't afford it.
We're going to spend hundreds of billions of dollars administering thousands of separate private plans, the purpose of which is to generate profits for insurance companies, increase administrative expenditure all over the healthcare system, resulting in cracks where people are going to slip through. We'll have millions of uninsured people under Biden's plan.
Why would they be uninsured if they could just go to the public option?
Because they have to pay for it.
Not if you income scale it, obviously.
Okay, so as those income scales, are they actually going to cover the cost? Because under the ACA, they don't. There's millions of people that do not sign up for the ACA right now.
The ACA doesn't have a public option. The ACA is garbage.
Of course the ACA is garbage.
So why are you comparing the ACA to a public option? The ACA isn't the government...
The public option does not necessarily have to be good. It could be unaffordable, just like all these other plans.
No, the public option is literally supposed to be provided by the government. So we would set rates on that. We would literally vote on that. That would be part of what they do in Congress. It's not just a private company. The ACA is just a collection of private companies at an exchange that bid for your services. It's not a government-provided healthcare plan.
That's exactly okay, but you're underlining my entire point. There is no advantage to the ACA model that you're proposing, other than political viability.
Political viability, at the end of the day, is the only thing that matters, Mike.
But that's your judgment.
No, that's literally reality. When you get off Twitch.tv and you look at real politics, the only thing that matters is, one, can you get your candidate elected? And two, can they pass legislation?
Okay, was it politically possible? Okay, here's the thing. Your judgment of what is and isn't politically possible is based on your own opinions.
No, it's based on the fact that every single candidate that ran for Medicare for All had a harder time winning their elections than those that didn't, and it's been a referendum on Bernie's policies on him not being able to get voted through the primary process. This idea that there's a massive wave of progressives just hidden somewhere in fucking America is just not true, Mike. It's fucking delusional fantasy. You can cherry pick a few polls to show that people like all healthcare being blah, 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 but it just isn't borne out in any actuality. When it comes time for people to actually fucking vote, nobody's showing up for all of these crazy progressives. It just doesn't happen. The only places it happens are the insanely fucking heavy blue districts, and even in places like AOC's district, she's carried by fucking moderate white voters anyways. Like, it's not like there's this massive progressive fucking movement that's showing up somewhere that we're just somehow ignoring or missing because cable TV doesn't show them. They just don't exist, Mike.
Okay, so you've now conflated so many things.
Okay, Mike.
You've conflated voters with political plausibility, as if what the voters want is what gets passed. Like, this is just childish thinking.
I'm sorry, so who really controls it? Is it the corporations, Mike?
Are you confused?
Who controls what legislation gets passed?
Wait. So hold on. Let me just ask you this question. Do you think that the will of the voters is what gets passed through Congress? Or do all the studies showing that the interests that are catered to by Congress, that's just conspiracy theories?
I think that it's largely overblown. I don't think that there are all of these people back at home that are opposed to a certain policy, and then a big donor steps in, and the guy's like, fuck them. I'm sure there are examples of certain types of legislation that gets passed that fucks over average American stuff that's a little harder to understand, maybe stuff related to tax law or whatever. But when it comes to a big thing like an immigration plan or like a Medicare plan, no, I don't think that people in Congress are like, fuck my constituents, I'll just vote however I want and win the next election cycle.
Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna write. So here is the former administrator of Medicare, Dr. Don Berwick. Now, you have your opinion, right? Now, Dr. Don Berwick, former administrator of Medicare, has his on the public option, and I'll just timestamp it for you. It's in the voice comrade text. I'll provide it to what other chats do people want? What are we in right now? And he'll explain to you why the public option is stupid. You can play it for everybody.
All right, let's go. 4 minutes. Hold on.
All right, hold on. No, well, I got an ad. I don't have ad block on.
This is interesting. When we talk about Joe Biden's desire to add a public option to the Affordable Care Act, even one that people could buy into, as opposed to just being limited, as the ACA is now, to people who don't have an option of getting health insurance through their employer or any other way, and subsidies only being available up to a certain percentage of wealth in this country, a certain percentage of poverty, and the idea that costs are crazy. The real question is like, how you cut costs? Well, here is the former Medicare administrator, Dr. Don Berwick. He was under Obama. He explains why the public option at a House hearing will not be sufficient for containing medical costs.
I'm a little worried about public option for a kind of technical reason. Insurance companies want to provide insurance to people that don't need it. That's how they make money. And so anything that can be done to game risk, so that
public option would be used by all the people who really need the insurance.
Yeah, and if I were insurance companies would then try to find ways to have people who really need care go to the public option, which would enrich. It would be a good business case for them, and that's not good for the country.
So look, I mean, this is an
okay. So the first thing he brings up has to do with this adverse selection. Adverse selection here is not necessarily bad. If the poorest people are the people that need, it's not. If these people that need healthcare the most end up going on the public option, as long as that option is funded, that's fine. What's wrong with that?
As long as it's funded, because what it will do, it will blow up all the projections. Your whole point about the public option is that it'll save money compared to that wild-eyed Medicare for all, because we'll be able to do it in a more efficient manner of only targeting the public option to the people that are currently not covered. But what will happen?
What? I've never said that. I'm sure that if a public option becomes available, there are going to be some people that are going to hop off their insurance. Maybe they've got Cobra shit from an X insurance. Maybe they have private insurance that are going to hop onto the public option. Of course that's going to happen. Probably the people with the highest cost that those private insurance companies don't want to carry. Of course.
That's exactly the whole problem, because it becomes much more expensive when you do that. And so
it's not as expensive.
Medicare for all. Hold on. The reason why Medicare for all and all the studies show it is cheaper is because it gets rid of all the administrative bloat, all of the costs associated with maintaining.
There is no. That's not true. That it gets rid of the administrative bloat.
It absolutely
does. It doesn't. That's not even true.
That's what all the studies show. I mean, it's your opinion, man, but I'm just going by what all the studies show.
If you look at, so here is a big problem with that shit-ass fucking Lancet study that you cited earlier. If you go in there, here's how they figure out what they think the administrative cost of single payer will be. They take the current administrative cost right now of Medicare, and then they compare it broadly to the entire private sector. Can you think of any problems with that? Because I can give you two right off the top of my head. The first one is that Medicare people, as a total expenditure of all the money that goes into that healthcare system, are going to be spending way more on Medicare, on medical costs than on administrative costs. So of course for Medicare, the administrative costs are really fucking low because their cost of care is very fucking high. The cost of care being very high doesn't mean the administrative costs are any higher, so it just bloats it and makes it look like it's actually doing a lot better in terms of administrative costs than it actually is the first problem. Do you concede to that or no?
No, I don't.
Okay, that's fine. Then you're a fucking idiot. The second problem is that the administrative costs of Medicare.
You can't take a. First of all, this is not the only study. There are 22 other studies that you've got to dispense with showing that the administrative costs are lower. And we know that they're lower because we can compare ourselves to Canada. And Canada spends half per capita than we do on medical care. And go talk to a Canadian. When they show up, they don't have to show up with a big old checkbook. And they don't every year. They don't have to sit there and pick a plan to enroll in, and they don't pay premiums, and they don't pay deductibles.
First of all, that's not true. That's not okay. You think in Canada they don't pay any premiums, they don't pay any deductibles, they don't pay any copay on any of their medical insurance?
I didn't say they didn't pay any copay. I said they didn't have any premiums, they don't have any deductibles, and it's free at the point of service. Maybe they have to pay a small copay.
Wouldn't that make it not free at the point of service?
Limited. Okay, a small copay is the difference between us. For example, if I broke my leg under my ACA plan, it would probably cost me $5,000. How do I know this? Because I actually use the ACA. I go to the fucking market. I compare plans. And when I look at the plans, they tell me sample injuries and how much it would cost if, say, you broke your leg, clean break, you went to the emergency room, blah, 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 blah. There is nothing like that in other developed countries. They don't pay out-of-pocket costs like this. It's insanity. And what we're doing here is we're paying for the administration of thousands of separate plans.
So, okay, so I understand you're telling me about a high-deductible plan you bought off of the ACA, and it costs a lot of money to get. I don't know what this has to do with whether or not a public option would cost more or less than single payer.
You stopped watching Dr. Berwick in the middle of the video.
Oh yeah, well I just stopped.
No, wait. Let me get this straight for the audience. You know more than Lancet and Yale epidemiologist studies, the 22 other studies saying Medicare for all saves us money, and the former administrator of Medicare.
So first,
that's your fucking position of authority.
This is the biggest,
amazing.
This is the biggest appeal to authority in the world. Okay, so
appeal to science.
You're not appealing to science. If you were appealing to science, you wouldn't point to epidemiologists doing an econ study on how we can fucking fund Medicare for all. You fucking moron. That's not what epidemiologists fucking study.
Dr. Destiny.
Holy
okay.
shit!
Destiny, let me know when you publish your study. Let me know when you publish your study. You're not even citing one study. You're not even citing one study.
This is literally a fallacious appeal to authority. It's taking an educated person from another area.
Do you know what appeal to authority? This is okay. This is ridiculous.
Wait, no, I do know. I know both types. I know both types of appeal to authority, and you've done both of them. So the first type of appeal to authority is an appeal to a fallacious authority, where you take a person that's an authority in one area, and then you try to say that they're an authority of an area that they have no domain in. So, for instance, saying an epidemiologist can tell us how to administer healthcare policy in the United States. That's one example. A second example is if I contend with a specific point that you give or a specific argument, and you just say, well, actually, there's an authoritative figure that says that's argument's right, so I don't have to address your argument. That's the second type of fallacious appeal to authority. You've done both of them, Mike.
You have a fallacious. You have no evidence. All you're doing is trying to come up with just so objections and saying, Mike, what do you think about this?
What do you think a just so objection is? What do you think that means?
You're literally.
Wait. What do you think?
Wait! Shut the fuck up! You're interrupting me again. I have laid countless pieces of evidence on the table.
First of all, you haven't linked me a single thing. You when I asked you for evidence that Warren was being fucking herded by the DNC or whatever bullshit. God. Okay, fuck off. But so regardless, we're talking about this one Lancet study. Also, wait, do you know what a just so story is? Because you use that term, but I'm pretty sure you don't know what it means.
Literally just.
You don't know what a just so story is. That's fine. You're probably googling.
Authority is.
I do. I just described. Wait, hold on. Do you want to look it up real quick? Because I just described to you both ways that you were doing it.
Okay. I literally appeal to the best authorities you can possibly appeal to.
And I'm challenging one of the. First of all, the epidemiologists are not the best people you could possibly go to. Okay.
No, the Lancet and the entire peer review process is also part of it.
So if I show you a single Lancet study and you have a problem with the methodology of that study that you can illustrate, I don't have to contend with that at all. I just say, well, you're wrong because it's in the Lancet.
You have your methodological problems that you pick out. How do I know they have any relation to what's actually real or not?
Okay,
you can't
I'll link. There you go.
Something.
There's a bad economics thread. You can go through it later. You can read it on stream. Maybe you can argue with this guy. You could try to show why.
There's a Reddit post. My mistake. I'll take Lancet. You can take the Reddit post.
So you're not going to look at the arguments at all. You're just going to cherry pick the headlines. You're literally doing the appeal to authority right now. You understand that, right? That just because you don't like the argument, you're going to side with the guys that created a calculator to calculate how much single payer would cost, where you can't even adjust the fucking costs to go into the negative. They literally have the calculator set up so it'll always fucking save you money. You're going to side with those guys over any sort of critique of that study whatsoever.
I just posted more links into the Twitch chat. Sorry, DGG. Of a survey of 22 studies, just so you can look at all the savings. So you're arguing in favor of a public option when Dr. Berwick, who is the administrator of Medicare under Obama, saying that there would be serious problems with the public option. I think as empirically founded of a base for saying that single payer would save money compared to a multi-payer model with the public option and for-profit insurance.
This meta-analysis of 22 studies is comparing single payer to our current system, not a single payer to a public option.
Holy shit.
So there's a whole other thing. Oh, fuck. So every time you said 22 studies in the past, you were fucking wrong. So, okay. So anyway.
Find me a study showing that the public option will save money over Medicare for all. Find me one piece of data. One piece of data. Now, you said single payer would be more expensive than the current system. It's not.
Then the current system? Wait, what? No, I don't think that's true.
So you're proposing that you'll have a magic public option, that it's actually a good thing when we have adverse selection.
Yes, sometimes it is. Yes, yeah.
It's not a good thing because that blows up the financing, which is your big
if you do single payer, you're going to have to cover every single one of these people anyway. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yes, but you have efficiencies because there's no more. Do you know how much doctors and hospitals spend on billing?
Do you know what a percentage of total healthcare expenditure this is? Mike, we can play these games all day by trying to go. The fact of the matter is that under your single payer care, you're going to have to cover every single adversely selected person that I would under my public option. The only difference is under my public option,
the benefit is, Destiny, that we have a progressive tax system where we capture all the revenue in the entire fucking country, and no one could The reason why adverse selection is bad is because healthy people subsidize sick people. That's what health insurance is. It's a financing program. It's the sick people who hopefully we do not know them ahead of time. They're the ones who get financed by all the healthy people. But under your system of a public option, the sick people will get selected out of the pool, and it'll just be sick people in the public option.
And who's going to fund it?
Be able to
the healthy people paying taxes, just like in yours, Mike.
Okay, but why do we keep the private insurance industry then? Because
if people want to spend more on luxury insurance, or if people don't want to take advantage of the public
people are allowed
option
to
or whatever,
spend more on luxury insurance under Medicare for all.
No, they're not, Mike. You're literally barred from having duplicative coverage. And Bernie's plan extends.
Duplicative is not the different as luxury. What do you want? So wait a minute. You think?
Wait, Mike. When Bernie's literally
money. Wait a minute. So you think rich people are more virtuous and valuable than middle-class people, is what you're saying. Is that basically, since I have more money, I should be able to jump in front of you and get a kidney. I should be able to.
What the fuck are you talking about? Wait, who said anything about that? If you want to pay for
luxury health insurance, and I said that's allowed.
That doesn't mean being ahead on a kidney donor list, Mike. You're reaching really fucking hard. I'm cringing, bro.
You're cringing. Or an OR then. You get to go ahead of me on the OR for
Why would you go ahead of anybody? Maybe you want to pay extra to have some fucking room that has fucking flowers on the fucking wall or something.
That's allowed under Medicare for all.
No, it's not. You can't have extra coverage, Mike. And
you can.
You can't. It's literally you can't.
It just can't cover any covered procedures.
And Bernie's plan covers almost everything, even in vision and dental.
You could still have. It may not cover, say, Invisalign. It may not cover.
It does. That's dental. It does. That's vision.
Okay, that's orthodontics. That may be considered.
What do you think orthodontics is, Mike?
Orthodontics is cosmetic, Destiny. You stupid
You think
fucker.
that orthodontics is always cosmetic? You don't think that people get braces, or you don't think people get things like that because they actually have problems with their mouth?
There's difference between needing orthodontics so that you have a pretty smile and orthodontics so that you can chew. This is sort of like whether you need to get a breast implant to have bigger breasts, or you need to have reconstructive surgery because of breast injury or cancer. These are distinctions that are made under Bernie Sanders' plan.
So how comfortable are Americans going to be that when I go to my dentist, let's say that right now I have a little bit of crowding in the front of my mouth, okay? It makes it a little bit harder to clean behind one of my teeth. If I want to go and get Invisalign, is that going to be covered by Medicare for all, or do I have to pay out of pocket for that? Because that's not...
I guess it would depend upon the medical judgment of your dentist.
So you're literally arguing this is like the rationing care meme. So I literally am not going to be covered for this procedure.
All care is rationed, even under private insurance. They make decisions on this all the time.
Sure, but people are more comfortable.
And they deny you. They're more comfortable when private insurance denies you.
First of all, it's a lot harder to do those denials post-ACA, okay? Secondly, people are probably a little bit more comfortable with that if it's happening under private plans that they can choose between versus the government where they literally are bought into it.
First of all, they don't choose between plans. Your employer picks the plan. 50 million people have their insurance either dropped or changed every year. Let's stop pretending this is some sort of freedom choice thing that you're making that up. Most people just get the insurance that their employer gives them. So
do I have a greater choice over my insurance?
No. You're preserving the freedom.
Do I have a greater choice over my insurance if my employer gets it or if the government gets it for everybody?
The answer is your government, because then you have a democratically accountable politicians that you can go and complain that they're not covering a thing.
Wait, I thought you just said... Wait. I thought you said earlier, though, that politicians don't listen to their electorate. But for the Medicare for all, they would?
Well, that's exactly the problem, is that our system is so sclerotic. and unresponsive and undemocratic because of things you support, like the Electoral College, which is why we have Trump, and you're a dumb fuck who supports the Electoral College. That's why we have a sclerotic government. Whereas countries like in Scandinavia,
well, wait,
Canada,
if we didn't have
Australia,
Electoral College, wouldn't we just have the
New
neoliberal?
Zealand,
Wouldn't we just have the neoliberal Hillary Clinton in destroying everything? Isn't she like a fascist anyway, right?
I mean, like in the general election in 2016, I did my best to help get her elected. Unfortunately, she was one of the worst candidates, totally unlikable and really bad policies. So we couldn't rescue her, even though she had $1 billion advantage.
Regardless, before this pivot, so then we agree then that none of these changes would actually happen, that the Medicare for all wouldn't be responsive to the people because politicians don't listen to their constituents anyway, right?
No, we don't agree at all. We don't agree at all. The democratic accountability is better than the accountability I have with my employer. I mean, listen, ultimately, fair-mindedness of the people listening to this, if you actually think you have any say on what your employer picks for health insurance, fine.
Don't employers usually offer multiple plans anyway? It's been a long time since I worked for a casino, but I thought you had like 3 or 4 things you could pick between.
It depends on the employer. That's the freedom. The freedom isn't for you. The freedom isn't for your employer. And by the way, employers do not want this. They don't want the expenses. In fact, GM used to talk about the premium that they paid for health insurance on every car made. It makes American companies less competitive because by the way, we tax subsidize insurance provided healthcare. It's a tax subsidized thing. It's fucking stupid. No other major country does it. It's an artifact of price controls during World War II. And you're defending a status quo that is more expensive.
I'm not defending that. I would never defend private insurance.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
You're saying private insurance should be protected.
I didn't. I said most Americans want to protect their private insurance. Private insurance is fucking garbage. Like you said, private insurance is one of the few things that economists all over the world agree that it's horrible. Why are you going out there
and explaining this to your audience that we should all be fighting against this?
I literally say, I'm sorry, there is not a single member of my audience that thinks I'm opposed to universal health coverage. I literally say this every day. The thing is that with you progressives, you think that if I don't support your particular fucking plan, that means that I literally want poor people dying in the fucking streets. You know that Pete Buttigieg had a form of universal health coverage. I think every fucking Democrat running today, I think, has some form of universal health coverage. Just because it's not your single payer plan doesn't mean that it's not universal health coverage. And it doesn't mean that you want fucking poor people to be fucking dead on the street.
So ultimately, like, you're not gonna, ultimately, like, I've given you as strong as evidence that could possibly exist.
For what?
And you're not willing for single payer being superior.
No, the 22 study thing you brought up multiple times, that just said that single payer would save us money on our current spending. We spend more money than any other fucking country in the world. I'm pretty sure any type of universal coverage, whether it's multi-payer or single payer, would benefit us in terms of overall spending on healthcare. Of course. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about a single payer plan versus a multi-payer plan. Or a public option.
And we've just discussed why for-profit insurance, which is what you're preserving with the public option. There's a reason why the health insurance industry, by the way, opposes a public option. They do oppose the public option. I don't know if you watch the debates on television at all, but they had ads describing the public option as government takeover of healthcare, just like single payer.
Of course.
There's going to be just as much of a fight opposed to the public option, which is exactly what happened in 2009 and 2008. I'm sorry, 2009, 2010. If you remember, that's exactly what happened. I'm proposing that we actually adopt a system that is better, more equitable, and the evidence is there compared to the status quo. Now you're saying, well, what about my proposal? And there's just no data, no evidence, no studies for me to look at. If you had studies of me comparing Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren's Medicare for All to Joe Biden's public option, I'd be happy to look at those studies. But what we have here is my facts versus your feelings. And it's very difficult for me to engage with your feelings because they move around with whatever the needs of the argument are.
Wait, do you just want me to show you like the difference in cost between the proposed healthcare plans? Because the committee for the fucking federal budget already has, I can find that in 2 seconds.
You can find it in 2 seconds. Peer-reviewed studies comparing Joe Biden's, where'd you put it?
This is the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. Here you go.
Oh, isn't there? Wait, isn't this literally a Pete Peterson, like, billionaire fucking group?
Okay, we can spend some time on this if you want. Do you want to spend time on seeing whose healthcare plan is going to be more expensive? Do you really think Bernie Sanders' single payer is going to be cheaper than the proposed plans of any other candidate, Mike?
Okay, so here's the thing. Do you think there's a significant distinction between public and private spending?
Yeah, one is public and one is private. What do you mean? Also, nice pivot.
In healthcare. in healthcare. No, I'm answering your question. This is not a pivot. This is an important background question. So if we add another $3 trillion in public spending, the healthcare system is the grand aggregate of all public and private system and all public and private spending in the entire system. That's how all systems, healthcare systems, are compared. This artificial distinction between public and private spending is one that is only made for political reasons, not for the purpose of studying the actual effectiveness of the system. So if you
we're
say,
we're not talking about the effectiveness. We were talking about the funding for the system. So of course there's a difference between private and public. You don't have to fight for private dollars. You do have to fight for public ones.
Actually, well, the thing is, of course, you have to fight for both. Because private dollars are actually subsidized dollars. So what you're doing in the United States, in the United States of America, it's heavily subsidized. So what I'm trying to argue for, and look at the fiscal impacts. Oh, Jesus Christ. Studying all of this, all that's happening in the Warren and Sanders plans is they're capturing all healthcare spending expenditures and moving them into the public side of the ledger. All that spending still exists in Biden and Buttigieg's plan, except it's out of pocket. It's private. So you're doing an apples and oranges comparison.
No, that's good though. We want that to happen.
Why do we want that to happen?
Because if some private spending can come from the people that can actually afford it, then that's public dollars that you don't have to fight for. That's the whole fucking point.
But here's the problem, Destiny, is that the vast majority of spending does not go to the small fraction of people who can afford healthcare spending.
It doesn't matter. Every dollar that doesn't go towards somebody that can afford it is a dollar that can go.
That's why we have 500,000 medical bankruptcies. That's why you have.
We don't have the millions of medical bankruptcies. Is a stupid fucking meme. That's not true. But regardless, not at all you don't want it. Absolutely.
That's another study that I'm sure you're.
Do you know? I am familiar with that study. Do you know how they figure out if it's a medical bankruptcy? What they do is they look at you. If you have filed bankruptcy within the past 2 years, you've had a medical debt that's at least $300. They consider it a medical bankruptcy, Mike. That's where that study comes from. That's where that figure of 63% of bankruptcies are medical bankruptcies come from. It's not actual medical bankruptcies like I got fucking cancer and I've got to file bankruptcy. They took a bullshit arbitrary number. It was like $300 or $500, and they said if you filed bankruptcy and you've had a single medical expenditure over the past 2 or 3 years or whatever that has like $300 of fucking shit, then they call it medical bankruptcy. So yeah, I am familiar with that study.
No, I'm very familiar with what you're saying.
Then why would you bring that up?
Not true, because the study writer basically says they think they underestimated the number of people who have medical bankruptcies. And I think you
didn't respond to what I just said at all.
You're mischaracterizing actually what it was. It wasn't just some arbitrary number. I think it was a certain percentage of the debt load. And many people can't even afford a $500 expense. I think it's like half the country can't even afford $500 expense. So it doesn't surprise me that a $500 or $1,000 or $1,500 medical expense could cause them to go into bankruptcy. The point is that medical bankruptcies do not exist in other first world countries.
I wouldn't consider if you had a cold and you had to go to like to get a prescription or whatever for $200 or $300 a year ago, and then now you file bankruptcy. I don't think that's a medical bankruptcy.
Of course, but you're mischaracterizing. See, what you're doing is you're creating a reductio ad absurdum, and then you're
wait. Why do you throw these words? Didn't you have to learn these on the LSAT? Why do you say shit like this? How is this a reductio ad absurdum? Please tell me.
You're taking the case and you're reducing it to the most absurd possible example, the most edge case, and then you're generalizing that edge case.
How do you know that's an edge case, Mike?
How do you know it's not?
I'm just going by what the study said. They accounted for all of these when they figured out their percentage number.
So what percentage of the bankruptcies were medical debts of less than 1,000? If you don't know, you just made this up and generalized.
I didn't make it up, but you don't know either, which means it's probably not a good study to cite. I'd have to go back and look for it, but there was another one that showed the actual amount of people that had filed for medical bankruptcy, and it was much, 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 much lower than that. But I don't have that one off the top of my head, but I can find it for you later if you want.
You don't actually have the statistics.
Wait, can you tell me how any of this was a reductio ad absurdum, please? You throw around like all these lawyer terms. I think you remember these from like your fucking school days, but you don't actually know what any of these things fucking mean. You said just so story earlier. You don't know what that means. You don't know what a reductio absurdum is, and you don't know what the fucking appeal to a fallacious authority is either. What the fuck? You just throw these around in the hopes that I don't know what you're saying?
First of all, you're the one who doesn't know what appeal to authority is. You know it's.
I literally described both parts of it. I literally described both parts to it when I said it earlier. Oh my
It's
God.
appeal to improper authority. You literally couldn't have a more on-point authority than what I was, and you try to throw appeal to authority.
An epidemiologist.
You appeal
an epidemiologist
to these extreme cases. You appeal to these extreme cases.
What extreme cases?
Where you say, well, if a person had a cold a year ago, blah, 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 that could count as a medical bankruptcy. That is an extreme edge case that you don't know and you have no proof.
You don't know if that's an extreme edge case, though.
And
my
this
claim.
Is what you do.
No.
Dude,
my
Destiny,
claim.
Destiny. I want to explain something to you, so I think this will help you in the future.
Mike.
You don't get to just read a study and go, I can come up with a hypothetical where this study doesn't work anymore. Well, I just refuted the study. That's not how science works, my dude. That's not how it works. Now, maybe you have an objection for what you have an idea. I encourage you to go replicate the study and test your idea. Up until that happens, or you find some other authority or some other evidence that this is a bad study, your counter argument is just that. It's bullshit. It's not actually a refutation of the study. A refutation of the study would be actual peer-reviewed science refuting it. Are we still here?
Yeah, I mean, I can go and find. I mean, like, you cited a study that you didn't think I'd be familiar with, and I was, and now you're mad at me because I can't tell you the exact fucking wording of the study. I don't remember exactly like which part of it, like, but I know that the general characterization of what is considered like a medical bankruptcy was bullshit. But I don't remember the exact words of it.
I'm reading more because medical bankruptcy is a huge problem in this country. Like, you agree with that, right? I mean. Let's back away from the exact study, whether or not you think the 500,000 families per year is accurate or not.
Nathan Russell.
You do agree that medical bankruptcy is a huge problem, right?
What do you mean when you say huge problem?
We're talking about hundreds of thousands of people a year.
If that was the case, then yeah, of course.
So Elizabeth Warren had a study where they looked at 1.4 million bankruptcies, and they claimed that 62.1% of all bankruptcies had some relation to medical bills. And it was those who had mortgage, so expanded medical causes to include, they were those who mortgaged a home to pay medical bills, those who had medical bills greater than $1,000, and people who had lost at least 2 weeks of work to sickness. So which one of those do you have a problem? Is it the $1,000? Is it the sickness? What is it?
Probably the $1,000.
Okay, later studies. Tal Grossen had a study in 2011. It said medical costs, out-of-pocket medical costs, influenced 26% of bankruptcies in low-income households.
That's a more reasonable number.
And 20.
Wait. Hold on. You just gave me the difference between 67% or 62% and 26%. You realize you just gave me two dramatically different numbers, right?
Of course, because life is complex, and depending upon how you draw the line, the point is, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of bankruptcies are from the underlying point of medical costs causing bankruptcy is unrefutable.
Okay.
There was another study in 2015 from the Kaiser Family Foundation. Medical bills made 1 million adults declare bankruptcy. Said that 26% of Americans 18 to 64.
I know, yeah. Before you said 62% was an underrepresentation, but now you're giving me studies saying 26.
I know. I'm just giving because you wanted to refute one study, and I didn't have a problem with. I don't have a problem with any of those. If people are they're going into bankruptcy because of medical bills, that's a medical bankruptcy in my view.
Well, it depends. Right? Because life is complicated. If somebody makes $250,000 a year and they get a $1,500 medical expense and they go into bankruptcy, is that a medical bankruptcy?
Again, you have these extreme edge cases and then you generalize them so you could
I'm not. You just you gave me a hypothetical. You said that if somebody has a medical bill and that caused them to go into bankruptcy, that's a medical bankruptcy. And I just gave you a clear example where we both know that the answer is no. We probably wouldn't consider that a medical bankruptcy.
Okay. So ultimately, in that specific edge case, probably hard to argue that medical bills were the controlling factor.
Cool.
But
okay.
I think we both could agree that if we no longer have medical debt, there's no such thing as medical bankruptcies anymore, right? So we no longer have to go through these splitting of hairs down the line.
Yeah, if I was opposed to universal health coverage, then I might argue with you.
Except
but
the plans that you're proposing are going to have millions of people that are uninsured.
Except if you wouldn't be able to afford it, the public option would probably be at incredibly reduced cost or free. So no.
Okay, but it won't be, because that's the entire reason that it's an option, is that you have to pay premiums.
No, it would be. The reason why it's an option is because it doesn't ban duplicative coverage. That's what makes it the option, not that you have to pay premiums.
Okay, so your belief is that the public option is simultaneously going to provide complete universal coverage. Now, is this a mandated insurance policy?
What do you mean by mandated? What do you mean? Wait, which part is mandated?
Are you automatically enrolled?
No.
So if I just go to the doctor, I have the public option, right? Or
maybe you can be by default if you don't declare a different one on a tax form or something.
Well, no, I'm not asking what you think it might be. I'm asking what is Biden's plan. We spent a lot of time debating Bernie's plan. I just wanted to know what Biden's plan is.
My understanding is that Biden plans to do expansions of Medicaid and Medicare and build on the ACA. I don't know in terms of what his rollout looks like for public option.
Expansion. But that doesn't necessarily mean universality. Like you said, you believe in universality.
Sure, I don't think Joe Biden's plan has universality, because I keep hearing people say that millions of people wouldn't necessarily be covered. I don't know if that's true or not, but if that is true, then that's obviously not universal.
So we would still have we would have the same problems as we do now, which is exploding healthcare costs, millions of people uninsured, medical bankruptcies. We would spend the most of any other country in the world. And we would have to pay new taxes because of the adverse selection that you would concede is going to happen.
We're going to have to pay new taxes under any plan. There is no Medicare for all in and of itself doesn't address exploding costs of care. They're not all administrative. Okay, there's a lot of different things that go into the cost of care in the United States.
If Biden is so fucking important and electable, why don't we have any knowledge about Biden's plan? Is what I'm wondering.
Why are we pivoting away from this? Wait. Whoa, why are you pivoting so hard from this now? You pivot so much in our conversations.
How am I pivoting? I'm explaining how you
I was literally just in the middle. I was literally just in the middle of explaining how any problem that you just said exists under a public option also exists under a single payer. And now you want to run over? Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't. The single payer is immediately enrolls everyone. There is no one that's uncovered.
Sure, but you still have to deal with it. You still have to deal with exploding costs. You still have to deal with tax increases.
Yeah. So we eliminate the for-profit insurance industry.
Just eliminating the profits of companies doesn't get rid of.
We massively reduce the administrative costs, and then we negotiate for things like drug prices, and then we have different reimbursement rates.
We don't even know. We don't even know.
Reimbursement rates are lower.
We don't even know if the administrative costs would change significantly. That's one thing that hasn't even necessarily been demonstrated yet. Firstly.
Well, they would. Okay. First of all, there's tremendous number of studies saying that.
Tremendous. Holy shit.
There's 20. We have 20 plus studies, but it's fine. You say that it's not demonstrated.
Wait, the 20 plus studies have to do with comparing the total cost of healthcare for single payer versus the entire United States.
Right. And it shows that the administrative costs would decline. That's the advantage of a single payer system.
Yeah, but decline significantly as a total.
So wait. So you don't look at Canada at all? You think that is Canada like a no-go zone to you? Like, they spend half as much per person. They have universal coverage, longer life expectancy.
Sure, but that might not be
outcomes.
because they have a single thing that administers health insurance. There might be the cost of care in the United States is very fucking high. The ways that we pay our doctors is very fucking high. I don't think that just administrative costs are the only reason. Admin costs and healthcare profit are 3% of the total medical spending that goes on in the United States. I don't think cutting that a little bit is all of a sudden going to magically save us trillions of fucking dollars.
Did you miss everything else I said? Reimbursement rates are lower. And prescription drug prices are lower. You're talking about 20% cost reductions at least. Furthermore, where
do you get that 20% at? Wait, what?
Oh my god. Okay, lower reimbursement rates. Oh my god. This is.
Okay, wait. So when you say lower reimbursement rates, you're saying that we're going to pay doctors and nurses and everybody less, right?
No, what we're going to pay them. We pay them fee for service right now.
Wait, no, wait. I'm curious if you'll actually own a single fucking thing you said. You're telling me that we will pay doctors and nurses. We'll pay them less under your plan than we do now, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
That's part of the problem that we have is we have extremely high rates of compensation for procedures.
No. Don't weasel out of it. We're talking about wages for doctors and medical staff, not cost of procedures, but you're okay taking a
That's
big...
part of it.
Okay.
That's part of it.
Okay, cool. Okay, gotcha. So nurses and CNAs and doctors and all the staff or whatever that work in hospitals would all be getting pay cuts. Okay, go ahead.
I mean, again, it depends upon the total balance of.
Wait. So you can't own that position.
I mean, it's possible. It's possible.
No, now it's impossible. You just told me the compensation was going to be less. You were real hard on it, and now I want to actually push you. Okay, because I want to see all the fucking nursing unions coming out for Bernie Sanders and shit.
Shut the fuck up. I'm about to go through it out loud so everybody in the chat can understand because.
Yeah, go for it.
You're trying so much to score a point.
I know, dude. That's what I do. Score points.
In Canada, I think the compensation rates are pretty similar between Canadian doctors and American doctors. The Canadian doctors might be paid a little bit less. I don't know exactly how much less. That's a good question, actually.
Okay, so I just Googled it. September 14th, 2011. This headline is, Canadian doctors still make dramatically less than U.S. counterparts.
Okay, I have one. I mean, I have one that says they make 10%. A Canadian general practitioner makes 10% more. Hold on, but that might be wrong. Here we go. We have a National Post article that says Canadian doctors still make dramatically less than counterparts. Okay. It was like orthopedic surgeon was 442,000 in the U.S., 208,000 in Canada, 324,000 in the U.K., and 154,000 in France. I mean, like, primary care physicians. I mean, it looks like the United States has the highest paid doctors in the world. That doesn't surprise me.
Okay, cool. That's fine. That's okay. Then you can just say, yeah, we're going to cut their wages of doctors and healthcare staff. You can say that. It's okay.
I mean, well, because it's not a direct wage cut.
No, it would be a direct wage cut. It would literally...
No, it isn't. Because it's a fee for service. So, I mean, if they do more procedures, their compensation can go up.
So you think doctors today just sit around all the time and they don't fucking do anything, but under Medicare for all these people are going to be coming in for hip replacements and they're going to be making the same money they did before?
The question is, are we at full utilization right now or not?
My understanding, and I'm totally talking about as I'm a study of this, but my understanding of it right now is that we have a severe shortage of medical staff in the United States. Is that not true?
I mean, it could be. It could be. I mean,
that would mean that doctors and nurses are probably some of the busiest people.
Doctors have to pay, like, tuition is like $500,000 at medical school.
Okay.
So, I mean, that wouldn't surprise me if a lot of people couldn't go to medical school. So, I mean, honestly, like, if the wages go down, I don't really have a problem with that, especially if the doctors in other first world countries make less.
Okay.
I don't think that we would necessarily cut their wages, but we would scale in these reimbursement rates. And this is a discussion about American, like, we are facing a problem here, which we both agree, which is exploding healthcare costs, right?
Everything that you're saying, I had a link earlier to a study about, it was one of the big Bernie proposals. Everything that you're doing right now is why all of your progressive policies fail. All of them sound so good on paper, but when we start getting into, okay, well, who's getting a pay cut and where is the money coming from? Now all of a sudden it's like, okay, fuck, well, we don't want to cut wages there because we're going to lose the support of all of those people. Okay, well, if we get rid of all health insurance, that's like fucking how many millions of American jobs are just fucking lost into thin air? Okay, well, now if we want to raise tax on this and middle class.
But you don't support anything. You don't support anything. First of all,
I do support things. What do you mean?
These exist. First of all, you know who else wants to cut reimbursement rates?
Joe Biden.
This is part of the whole argument for constraining healthcare costs includes reducing reimbursement rates.
Nice
and
pivot.
every year they do an emergency patch. It's not a pivot. I'm directly addressing the problem of reimbursement rates. And you propose something.
I wasn't talking about reimbursement rates. I'm saying that all of your plans sound nice until we get down into, like, well, who's actually going to be taking home less money and where the tax increase is going to come from. Like, that's a big problem. And you're not even comfortable telling me right now that doctors will be paid less. Like, it's really fucking hard for you to just own that.
I know. What I examined I looked at the evidence and I said reimbursement rates will probably have to be constrained, which means over the long run they're going to have less money going in compensation. I have no problem with that. I don't even think you didn't catch shit.
I don't think I caught. It's just really hard. It's really funny how hard it is for you to own, like, the negatives.
Problem, like, because it exists. It exists in other countries. Well, here's the thing about politics is when you lead with the negatives, the purpose of that is to protect the status quo, right? Like what you're saying is, hey, doctors and nurses, they're going to cut your pay. Like that's the purpose of that is to protect the profits of the for-profit insurance
And what do you
industry.
think Trump is going to do if you try to roll out a plan like this? Another purpose is to test for the viability of the plan. If I can so easily attack this in the fucking primaries, what do you think it's going to look like in the general? You think Trump is just going to let it slide? Fuck, even the ACA, we heard about fucking death panels for months and months, and my mom still calls me.
Because death panels exist in private insurance right now. Yeah, people get denied coverage all the time. Death panel is just another word for doctors reviewing that treatment to see if it's medically necessary. That's what the practice of medicine is.
Sure. This doesn't change anything that I just said, where if your plan can't survive, people questioning its viability in the primaries, it's no business even going to the general. It's not going to make it.
So you've just pivoted from an
I'm not
argument.
Pivoting at all.
You pivoted from an argument that had to do with whether or not this policy is empirically justified.
What? When did I ever talk about this being? I have never talked about. Wait,
political viability.
You're getting lost, Mike.
Unknown. Political viability is unknown until we're actually
there. We need
there.
free healthcare for you,
option.
Mike. You're losing it.
Wait, but you're
going the Biden route.
I'm
God.
I'm sorry to trigger you,
Oh,
but
no.
you pivoted. You pivoted away from.
He's having a Biden moment.
Viability. Look at him.
So,
Look at him pivot.
Now
he's trying to do it at home.
So I've never said that empirically speaking, single payer would be more expensive. Like I'm not only going to say concede. I've said multiple times that almost any form of universal health coverage is going to be cheaper than we pay now. We pay more than anyone else in the world for healthcare. I've never argued that. So why would you sit here and pretend like I pivoted away from an argument that I don't even defend when I'm specifically trying to see if you'll say...
You literally just did.
But I didn't, though. I've never said in here that...
Resetting the conversation. You're confused about... Okay, you're arguing that Bernie Sanders didn't win, therefore it's not... Medicare for all is not politically viable.
Well, no, my evidence for Medicare for all being not politically viable had to do with the study that tested every candidate who had Medicare for all as a position and then controlled for variables to see if it was actually
Except there are other studies that show that it has no effect.
Okay, I would like to see those. I'm curious. We can find those at some point.
This is when you jump into my Discord. Okay, here it is. Let me see. Oh, hold on. Let me get it. Okay, here it is. Now, this is a lefty group. So, but you where did I post it? I posted in voice comrade text, and I'll post it in Twitch chat, which is where everybody should be chatting, honestly. Did I actually get it? Okay, there it is. So if you go to the study, it says Medicare for... Oh, wait, what? That link didn't work. What the fuck? Going into DGG. All right, it says, data for analysis finds support for Medicare for all did not have an effect on candidate vote share.
11
not
months,
associated with electoral performance, dropping Medicare for all support and exclusively using CF scores to measure ideology. So there was no relationship between candidate ideology and vote share. In addition, we analyzed national and swing district polling, suggesting little public opposition to Medicare for all.
Wait, where is this? Link this to? I just want to say I'm curious.
I put it in voice comrade text. All right, hold on. It's a PDF file. It works for me. The link in voice comrade text works. Let me do it one more time here.
Data for progress to move on.
Mm-hmm. And then they did.
Mike from
I mean, and
CPC
these
Pepe
numbers.
laugh.
I mean, they looked at all. This is the 2018 election.
Yeah, that's as were mine.
Love you, Destiny Nathan Weeb.
And what statistically was significant was, I think, Clinton vote share. I think that was the most significant of how people did. But I mean, like, you know, is this This is what it is. It's a pretty weak. I wouldn't even call. I mean, this 2018 just happened. Fortunately, don't. Why can't I post Mike's emotes? Well, they're banned.
How are my emotes banned?
No, your emotes aren't banned. Mine are banned in your Twitch chat. People tell me.
How?
I don't know. It says they're against the moderation rules.
What are your emotes? How are they? How do you type them?
I mean, I could I don't know. Like, for example,
name one of your emotes. What's the type?
Yeah, DSA, which is my emote code, or is my partner code, and then rat, all caps. DSA rat. We have that. That's a special emote. Well, you can do it, but I'm not allowed to. So somebody banned all my emotes in your channel. I don't know who did that. I guess. Well, looks like you can't do it.
Oh damn! Get fucked. Okay, I don't know who did that. Good decision, guys. Nice job. We don't.
Molina's cute. Steven is cuter. Mike from Pa has the mind of a coomer.
I guess we have to do that. So, you came to this channel. You wanted to talk to me about Bernie not winning, which is a shame. But I guess we'll see tomorrow what happens.
Okay, Mike. Don't take it too hard, okay?
I'll be okay. I'll be okay. I'm worried about Trump winning again, though.
Really? It's kind of strange because you told people you don't really care if they vote for Biden or not, and they didn't even need to vote for down ballot votes. So it seemed like you didn't really care much about that. In fact, I think you actually explicitly said you're an anti-Biden voter, not anything about anti-Trump. But
we need more anti-Biden voters.
Yeah.
We need to be a little bit less accepting of moderate Democrats. I think is actually what I would like to advocate for.
Strange, because it seems like this election cycle, and the last one is a projection of progressive candidates. But oh well.
Well, I guess progressives have two choices. Then they could vote for the Democrat.
Ye boys. Yes, in the chat, boys.
With Donald Trump winning after 8 years of Obama. How do you account for Trump winning if moderates are the way to go? Is it all about Hillary Clinton, the person?
I think that Hillary Clinton, the person, had a big part to deal with it. Yeah, for sure. But I think it was a rejection. I think that a lot of people felt the pains of globalism and didn't really have a place to point a finger to. So establishment.
But now they don't feel those pains anymore because.
Well, at this particular moment in time, before, I don't know if the corona shit is starting to affect the regular working person, but like a few weeks ago. No, I think the average person had like a super optimistic outlook on the economy, which would have made Trump really hard to beat. I don't know if this corona stuff will tank that, but no.
Maybe they'll get rejected. He'll get saved by the corona events that happen. That could happen.
Sure.
And then he's going to get in office and do nothing. And then 4 years from now, what's going to happen?
I mean, if Bernie got into office, he would do nothing. So,
not incorrect. I mean, he could legalize marijuana with an executive order. He could cancel all student loans.
There is an argument for that, but I think you're technically supposed to go through Congress if you want to change the way that the DA structures everything. Although I think you can do it via executive order. Maybe Joe will. I don't know. I guess we'll see.
I mean, he's not proposing to do anything like that.
Yeah, maybe he'll be pushed to it. Maybe Bernie can be there. That's what your progressives do. You just sit there and give us a couple policy ideas. Maybe that could be one that we give to Biden.
I don't know. I think the guy who says that he has no sympathy for millennials is going to be pretty hard to push.
Well, we'll see what happens then, okay? Yeah, that's true. Ask Mike, why did Hillary's 5 worst Super Tuesday districts in 2016 vote for Biden this primary by double digits? Yikes.
I think we all it's a totally different race. I mean,
it's the establishment.
Progressives were not unified.
Uh-huh.
Biden performed well out of South Carolina. I think the endorsements were really effective, and Bernie Sanders was in. And this is when someone loses a race. Sometimes it's events, sometimes it's the person, sometimes it's just as you say, not meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think ultimately in this specific instance. Having the progressive vote split and Joe Biden having pretty much the support of the entire Democratic Party apparatus was pretty important.
Damn. Well, maybe next cycle, maybe progressives can focus on being actually politically effective, getting support inside establishment structures, and actually build a real movement instead of picking an independent and trying to shoehorn him into the Democratic establishment, I guess.
So that's a great question, but are you aware of who Henry Cuellar is?
Nope.
He's a Trump's favorite Democrat, probably the most conservative Democrat. He was primaried, and he was supported by Nancy Pelosi and DCCC. This is a guy who votes with Trump 70% of the time. So, like, that is the type of Democratic Party we have. So even if we win office with Joe Biden, these soft, fucking weak, moderate Democrats are not going to use the power to accomplish anything. Sort of like a Barack Obama didn't do anything.
First of all, if you want to talk about executive orders, I'm pretty sure Barack Obama had more than any other president in the history of the United States. That was one of the big criticisms of him.
Well, once he was 6 years a lame duck, he had to do a couple things.
Sure.
And then those were
Secondly,
all rolled back by Trump as soon as he lost.
What is he supposed to do? He doesn't have Congress. Yeah, that's the problem with ruling by executive fiat, is that as soon as you do it, it can be undone very easily.
Done more, should have passed the Voting Rights Act, should have raised the minimum wage, maybe done a stimulus that wasn't garbage.
Okay. Well, I would rather have shitty Democrats in office than people that get backed by AOC that can't even fucking win office. I'd rather have a shitty Democrat in office than a Republican, so.
I mean, that's like not even true. There's plenty of Democrats that have won. I mean, like Katie Porter. I just talked about Susan Wild. I just talked about Pat Cartwright. Like, there's plenty of people that are progressives in swing districts.
I'm pretty sure in Super Tuesday there were several candidates that AOC backed that got absolutely fucking annihilated.
Like who?
Immigration lawyer Jessica Cisneros came up short 48.2% against
barely
Blue
lost.
Dog Democrat.
Henry Cuellar, I just brought him up. Yeah, he was supported by DCCC and Nancy Pelosi. Real good use of Democratic dollars, supporting a guy who is not. Blue Dog is underselling it, honestly. I don't even think you would support this guy.
Well, good luck. Good luck being politically effective next year. Okay, I believe in you guys.
Well, I mean, we don't have Democrats are not politically effective. Period.
Well, the first part of being politically effective, the number one part of being politically effective is getting in office. If you can't do that, then nothing matters.
I mean,
I guess
it happens all the time. Like, I'm looking at Philadelphia right now. We just ousted the Democratic DA. Larry Krasner's in there, but Helen Geim is the top.
Wait, was this in your district or whatever?
The
one that you were talking about, PA, whatever.
No, this is the Philadelphia offices.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, we're doing fine and ousting people.
Somebody linked me something earlier from that district that you said managed to win or whatever. Apparently, it's one of the top 10 most heavily gerrymandered districts in the United States.
No, it's not. All the Pennsylvania, they must be thinking of before. So what happened in 2018? There was a Pennsylvania Supreme Court decision that threw out all of the gerrymandering in Pennsylvania and redo the districts. So there's no more gerrymandering in Pennsylvania. PA 7. For your chatters, get better at Googling is what I would recommend. Is that it's actually I think it's a Hillary +2 district, one of the top targeted races for the Republicans. So I don't know.
Well, that's good.
Maybe Google better next time.
All right. Well, listen, it's been fun, buddy. Good luck finding 22 more studies in the future that actually support what you're talking about. And,
every single one. Well, once you find one study, find one study.
Study of what? I already linked you the budget estimates in terms of how much money every plan was going to cost.
Well, thank God you've got the Committee for a Responsible Budget. That nonpartisan thing.
I'll go find some. Didn't you admit that these guys were the left-wing group? The PDF that you linked me, the data for progress.
That was about the Medicare for all, and the math is right there. Do the math. Tell me where the math's wrong.
Okay, gotcha. We'll have fun next time we see you. Be careful, okay, bud?
Keep it up.
Sell your bet shares. Oh, I already did. I chat. I'm gonna tell you. I'll be honest with you. Once I heard they were reporting 62%, I sold my shares. I knew this.